Old John of Gaunt, time-honored Lancaster, hast thou, according to thy oath and band, brought hither Henry Hereford, thy bold son, here to make good the boisterous late appeal which our leisure would not let us hear against the Duke of Norfolk, Thomas Mowbray?
I have, my liege.
Tell me, moreover, hast thou sounded him if he appeal the Duke on ancient malice, or, worthily as a good subject should, on some known ground of treachery in him?
As near as I could sift him on that argument, on some apparent danger seen in him aimed at your highness, no inveterate malice.
Then call them to our presence, face to face, and frowning brow to brow, ourselves will hear the accuser and the accused freely speak. High-stomached are they both, and full of ire, in rage deaf as the sea, hasty as fire.
To Henry Bolingbroke and Thomas Mowbray.
Many years of happy days befall my gracious sovereign, my most loving liege.
Each day still better others' happiness, until the heavens, envying earth's good hap, add an immortal title to your crown.
We thank you both. Yet one but flatters us, as well appeareth by the cause you come, namely, to appeal each other of high treason. Cousin of Hereford, what dost thou object against the Duke of Norfolk, Thomas Mowbray?
First, heaven be the record to my speech, in the devotion of a subject's love, tendering the precious safety of my prince, and free from other misbegotten hate, come I, appellant, to this princely presence. Now, Thomas Mowbray, do I turn to thee, and mark my greeting well, for what I speak, my body shall make good upon this earth, or my divine soul answer it in heaven. Thou art a traitor and a miscreant, too good to be so and too bad to live, since the more fair and crystal is the sky, the uglier seem the clouds that in it fly. Once more, the more to aggravate the note, with a foul traitor's name, stuff I thy throat, and wish, so please my sovereign, ere I move, what my tongue speaks, my right-drawn sword may prove.
Let not my cold words here accuse my zeal. 'Tis not the trial of a woman's war. The bitter clamour of two eager tongues can arbitrate this cause betwixt us twain. The blood is hot that must be cooled for this. Yet can I not of such tame patience boast as to be hushed and naught at all to say? First, the fair reverence of your highness curbs me from giving reins and spurs to my free speech, which else would post until it had returned. These terms of treason doubled down in his throat. Setting aside his high blood's royalty, and let him be no kinsman to my liege, I do defy him, and I spit at him, call him a slanderous coward and a villain, which to maintain I would allow him odds and meet him were I tied to run afoot, even to the frozen ridges of the Alps, or any other ground inhabitable, wherever Englishman durst set his foot. Meantime, let this defend my loyalty. By all my hopes most falsely doth he lie.
Pale, trembling coward. There, I throw my gage, disclaiming here the kindred of the king, and lay aside my high blood's royalty, which fear, not reverence, makes thee to accept. If guilty dread had left thee so much strength as to take up mine honor's paw, then stoop. By that, and all the rights of knighthood else will I make good against thee arm to arm what I have spoke, or thou canst worse devise.
I take it up, and by that sword I swear which gently laid my knighthood on my shoulder, I'll answer thee in any fair degree of chivalrous design of knightly trial. And when I mount, alive may I not light if I be traitor or unjustly fight.
What doth our cousin lay to Mowbray's charge? It must be great that can inherit us so much as a thought of ill in him.
Look, what I speak, my life shall prove it true. That Mowbray hath received 8,000 nobles in names of lendings for your highness's soldiers, the which he hath detained for lewd employments, like a false traitor and injurious villain. Besides, I say, and will in battle prove, or here or elsewhere, to the furthest verge that ever was surveyed by English eye, that all the treasons, for these 18 years, complotted and contrived in this land, fetch from false Mowbray their first head and spring. Further I say, and further will maintain upon his bad life to make all this good, that he did plot the Duke of Gloucester's death, suggest his soon believing adversaries, and consequently, like a traitor coward, sluiced out his innocent soul through streams of blood, which, blood like sacrificing Abel, cries even from the tongueless caverns of the earth to me for justice and rough chastisement. And by the glorious worth of my descent, this arm shall do it, or this life be spent.
How high a pitch his resolution soars! Thomas of Norfolk, what sayest thou to this?
Oh, let my sovereign turn away his face, and bid his ears a little while be deaf, till I have told this slander of his blood, how God and good men hate so foul a liar.
Mowbray, impartial are eyes and ears. Were he my brother, nay, my kingdom's heir, as he is but my father's brother's son, now, by my scepter's awe, I make a vow. Such neighbor nearness to our sacred blood should nothing privilege him, nor partialize the unstooping firmness of my upright soul. He is our subject, Mowbray. So art thou. Free speech and fearless I to thee allow.
Then, Bolingbroke, as low as to thy heart, through the false passage of thy throat, thou liest. 3 parts of that receipt I had for Callus dispersed I duly to his highness soldiers. The other part reserved I by consent, for that my sovereign liege was in my debt upon remainder of a dear account, since last I went to France to fetch his queen. Now swallow down that lie. For Gloucester's death, I slew him not, but to my own disgrace, neglected my sworn duty in that case. For you, my Lord of Lancaster, the honourable father to my foe, once I did lay an ambush for your life, a trespass that doth vex my grieved soul, but ere I last received the sacrament, I did confess it, and exactly begged your grace's pardon, and I hope I had it. This is my fault. As for the rest appealed, it issues from the rancour of a villain, a recreant and most degenerate traitor, which in myself I boldly will defend, and interchangeably hurl down my gage upon this overweening traitor's foot, to prove myself a loyal gentleman, even in this best blood chambered in his bosom, in haste whereof most heartily I pray your highness to assign our trial day.
Wrath kindled, gentlemen, be ruled by me. Let's purge this collar without letting blood. This we prescribe, though no physician. Deep malice makes too deep incision. Forget, forgive, conclude, and be agreed. Our doctors say this is no month to bleed. Good uncle, let's end this where it begun. We'll calm the Duke of Norfolk, you your son.
To be a make-peace shall become my age. Throw down, my son, the Duke of Norfolk's gage.
And Norfolk throw down his.
Win, Harry, win. Obedience bids, I should not bid again.
Norfolk throw down, we bid, there is no boot.
Myself I throw down, dread sovereign, at thy foot. My life thou shalt command, but not my shame. The one my duty owes, but my fair name, despite of death that lives upon my grave, to dark dishonoured use thou shalt not have. I'm disgraced, impeached and baffled here, pierced to the soul with slander's venomed spear, the which no balm can cure but his heart blood, which breathed this poison.
Rage must be withstood. Give me his gage. Lions make leopards tame.
Yea, but not change his spots. Take but my shame, and I resign my gage, my dear, dear lord. The purest treasure mortal times afford is spotless reputation. That away men are but gilded loam or painted clay. A jewel in a 10 times barred up chest is a bold spirit in a loyal breast. Mine honour is my life, both grow in one. Take honour from me, and my life is done. Then, dear my liege, mine honour let me try, in that I live, and for that will I die.
Cousin, Throw up your gauge. Do you begin?
Oh, God, defend my soul from such deep sin. Shall I seem crestfallen in my father's sight, or with pale beggar fear impeach my height before this outdared dastard? Ere my tongue shall wound my honor with such feeble wrong, or sound so base a parley, my teeth shall tear the slavish motive of recanting fear, and spit it bleeding in his high disgrace, where shame doth harbor, even in Mowbray's face.
We were not born to sue, but to command, which since we cannot do to make you friends, be ready, as your lives shall answer it. At Coventry, upon St. Lambert's Day, there shall your swords and lances arbitrate the swelling difference of your settled hate. Since we cannot atone you, we shall see justice design the victor's chivalry. Marshal, command our officers at arms, be ready to direct these home alarms.
1. Scene 2. The Duke of Lancaster's palace. Enter John of Gaunt with Duchess of Gloucester.
Alas, the part I had in Gloucester's death doth more solicit me than York's claims to stir against the butchers of his life. But since correction lieth in those hands which made the fault that we cannot correct, put we our quarrel to the will of heaven, who, when they see the hours ripe on earth, will rain hot vengeance on offenders' heads.
Finds brotherhood in thee no sharper spur? Hath love in thy old blood no living fire? Edward's 7 sons, whereof thyself art one, were as 7 vials of his sacred blood, or 7 fair branches springing from one root. Some of those 7 are dried by nature's course, some of those branches by the destinies cut. But Thomas, my dear lord, my life, my Gloucester, one vial full of Edward's sacred blood, one flourishing branch of his most royal root is cracked, and all the precious liquor spilt, is hacked down, and his summer leaves all faded by envy's hand and murder's bloody axe. Ah, Gaunt, his blood was thine. That bed, that womb, that metal, that self-mold that fashioned thee made him a man. And though thou livest and breathest, yet art thou slain in him. Thou dost consent in some large measure to thy father's death, in that thou seest thy wretched brother die, who was the model of thy father's life. Call it not patience, Gaunt. It is despair. In suffering thus thy brother to be slaughtered, thou showest the naked pathway to thy life, teaching stern murder how to butcher thee. That which in mean men we entitle patience is pale, cold cowardice in noble breasts. What shall I say? To safeguard thine own life, the best way is to venge my Gloucester's death.
God's is the quarrel for God's substitute. His deputy anointed in his sight hath caused his death, the which, if wrongfully, let heaven revenge. For I may never lift an angry arm against his minister.
Wherefore may I commend myself then?
To God, the widow's champion and defense.
Why then, I will. Farewell, old Gaunt. Thou goest to Coventry there to behold our cousin Hereford and fell Mowbray fight. Oh, sit my husband's wrongs on Hereford's spear, that it may enter butcher Mowbray's breast. Or if misfortune miss the first career, be Mowbray's sins so heavy in his bosom, that they may break his foaming courser's back, and throw the rider headlong in the lists, a caitiff recreant to my cousin Hereford. Farewell, old Gaunt. Thy sometimes brother's wife, with her companion grief, must end her life.
Sister, farewell. I must to Coventry. As much good stay with thee as go with me.
Yet one word more. Grief boundeth where it falls. not with the empty hollowness, but wait. I take my leave before I have begun, for sorrow ends not when it seemeth done. Commend me to thy brother Edmund York. Lo, this is all. Nay, yet depart not so. Though this be all, do not so quickly go. I shall remember more. Bid him, what? With all good speed at Plashy visit me. Alack, and what shall good old York there see? But empty lodgings and unfurnished walls, unpeopled offices, untrodden stones, and what here there for welcome but my groans? Therefore commend me, let him not come there, to seek out sorrow that dwells everywhere. Desolate, desolate will I hence and die. The last leave of thee takes my weeping eye.
1, Scene 3, The Lists at Coventry. Enter the Lord Marshal and the Duke of O'Merle.
My Lord O'Merle, is Harry Hereford armed?
Yea, on all points, and longs to enter in.
The Duke of Norfolk, spritefully and bold, stays but the summons of the appellant's trumpet.
Why then, the champions are prepared and stay for nothing but his majesty's approach.
The trumpets sound, and King Richard enters with his nobles. When they are set, enter Thomas Mowbray in arms, defendant.
Marshal, demand of yonder champion the cause of his arrival here in arms, ask him his name, and orderly proceed to swear him in the justice of his cause.
In God's name and the King's, say who thou art, and why thou comest thus knightly clad in arms. Against what man thou comest, and what thy quarrel. Speak truly on thy knighthood and thy oath, and so defend thee heaven and thy valor.
My name is Thomas Mowbray, Duke of Norfolk, who hither come engaged by my oath, which God defend a knight should violate, both to defend my loyalty and truth to God, my king, and my succeeding issue against the Duke of Hereford that appeals me, and by the grace of God and this mine arm, to prove him in defending of myself a traitor to my God, my king, and me, and as I truly fight, defend me heaven.
The trumpets sound, enter Henry Bolingbroke, appellant, in armor.
Marshal, demand of yonder knight in arms both who he is, and why he cometh hither thus plated in habiliments of war, and formally, according to our law, depose him in the justice of his cause.
What is thy name, and wherefore comest thou hither before King Richard and his royal lists? Against whom comest thou, and what's the quarrel? Speak like a true knight, so defend thee heaven.
Harry of Hereford, Lancaster, and Derby am I, who ready here do stand in arms to prove by God's grace and my body's valor in lists on Thomas Mowbray, Duke of Norfolk, that he's a traitor, foul and dangerous, to God of heaven, King Richard, and to me. And as I truly fight, defend me heaven.
On pain of death, no person be so bold or daring hardy as to touch the lists, except the marshal and such officers appointed to direct these fair designs.
Lord Marshal, let me kiss my sovereign's hand and bow my knee before his majesty, for Mowbray and myself are like two men that vow a long and weary pilgrimage. Then let us take our ceremonious leave and loving farewell of our several friends.
The appellant in all duty greets your highness, and craves to kiss your hand and take his leave.
We will descend, and fold him in our arms. Cousin of Hereford, as thy cause is right, so be thy fortune in this royal fight. Farewell, my blood, which if today thou shed, lament we may, but not revenge thee dead.
Oh, let no noble eye profane a tear for me, if I be gorged by Mowbray's spear. As confident as is the falcon's flight, against a bird do I with Mowbray fight. My loving lord, I take my leave of you, my noble cousin, Lord O'Merle, not sick, although I have to do with death, but lusty, young, and cheerily drawing breath. Lo, As at English feasts, so I regreet the daintiest last to make the end most sweet. O thou, the earthly author of my blood, whose youthful spirit in me regenerate, doth with the twofold vigor lift me up to reach at victory above my head. Add proof unto mine armor with thy prayers, and with thy blessing steel my lance's point, that it may enter Mowbray's waxen coat, and furbish new the name of John a Gaunt, even in the lusty haver of his son.
God and thy good cause make thee prosperous. Be swift like lightning in the execution, and let thy blows doubly redoubled fall like amazing thunder on the casque of thy adverse pernicious enemy. Rouse up thy youthful blood, be valiant, and live.
Mine innocence and St. George to thrive.
However God or fortune cast my lot, there lives or dies true to King Richard's throne, a loyal, just, and upright gentleman. Never did captive with a freer heart cast off his chains of bondage and embrace his golden uncontrolled enfranchisement more than my dancing soul doth celebrate this feast of battle with mine adversary. Most mighty liege, and my companion peers, take from my mouth the wish of happy years. As gentle and as jocund as to jest, go I to fight. Truth hath a quiet breast.
Farewell, my lord. Securely I espy virtue with valor couched in thine eye. Order the trial, marshal, and begin.
Harry of Hereford, Lancaster, and Derby, receive thy lance, and God defend the right.
Strong as a tower in hope, I cry amen.
Go bear this lance to Thomas, Duke of Norfolk. Harry of Hereford, Lancaster, and Derby stands here for God, his sovereign, and himself, on pain to be found false and recreant, to prove the Duke of Norfolk, Thomas Mowbray, a traitor to his God, his king, and him, and dares him to set forward to the fight.
Here stands Thomas Mowbray, Duke of Norfolk, on pain to be found false and recreant, both to defend himself and to approve Henry of Hereford, Lancaster, and Derby, to God his sovereign, and to him disloyal, courageously, and with a free desire, attending but the signal to begin.
Sound trumpets, and set forward combatants. Stay! The king hath thrown his warder down.
Let them lay by their helmets and their spears, and both return back to their chairs again. Withdraw with us, and let the trumpets sound while we return these dukes what we decree. Draw near, and list what with our counsel we have done, for that our kingdom's earth should not be soiled with that dear blood which it hath fostered, and for our eyes do hate the dire aspect of civil wounds ploughed up with neighbour's sword, and for we think the eagle-winged pride of sky-aspiring and ambitious thoughts with rival-hating envy set on you to wake our peace, which in our country's cradle draws the sweet infant breath of gentle sleep, which so roused up with boisterous untuned drums, with harsh resounding trumpets, dreadful bray, and grating shock of wrathful iron arms might, from our quiet confines, fright fair peace, and make us wade even in our kindred's blood. Therefore, we banish you our territories, you, cousin Hereford, upon pain of life, till twice 5 summers have enriched our fields, shall not regreet our fair dominions, but tread the stranger paths of banishment.
Your will be done. This must my comfort be. That sun that warms you here shall shine on me, and those his golden beams to you here lent shall point on me and gild my banishment.
Norfolk, for thee remains a heavier doom, which I with some unwillingness pronounce. The sly, slow hours shall not determinate the dateless limit of thy dear exile. The hopeless word of never to return breathe I against thee, upon pain of life.
A heavy sentence, my most sovereign liege, and all unlooked for from your highness' mouth. A dearer merit, not so deep a maim, as to be cast forth in the common air, have I deserved at your highness' hands. The language I have learned these 40 years, my native English, now I must forego. And now my tongue's use is to me no more than an unstringed viol or a harp, or like a cunning instrument cased up, or being open put into his hand that knows no touch to tune the harmony. Within my mouth you have enjailed my tongue, doubly portcullised with my teeth and lips, and dull, unfeeling ignorance is made my jailer to attend on me. I am too old to fawn upon a nurse, too far in years to be a pupil now. What is thy sentence then but speechless death, which robs my tongue from breathing native breath?
It boots thee not to be compassionate. After our sentence, plaining comes too late.
Then thus I turn me from my country's light, to dwell in solemn shades of endless night.
Return again, and take an oath with thee. Lay on our royal sword your banished hands. Swear by the duty that you owe to God, our part therein we banish with yourselves, to keep the oath that we administer. You never shall, so help you truth and God, embrace each other's love in banishment, nor never look upon each other's face, nor never write, regreet, nor reconcile this lowering tempest of your homebred hate, nor never by advised purpose meet to plot, contrive, or complot any ill against us, our state, our subjects, or our land.
I swear.
And I, to keep all this.
Norfolk, so far as to mine enemy. By this time had the king permitted us, one of our souls had wandered in the air, banished this frail sepulchre of our flesh, as now our flesh is banished from this land. Confess thy treasons ere thou fly the realm. Since thou hast far to go, bear not along the clogging burden of a guilty soul.
No, Bolingbroke. If ever I were traitor, my name be blotted from the book of life, and I from heaven banished as from hence. But what thou art, God, thou and I do know, and all too soon I fear the king shall rue. Farewell, my liege. Now no way can I stray, save back to England. All the world's my way.
Uncle, even in the glasses of thine eyes I see thy grieved heart. Thy sad aspect hath from the number of his banished years plucked 4 away. 6 frozen winters spent, return with welcome home from banishment.
How long a time lies in one little word. 4 lagging winters and 4 wanton springs end in a word. Such is the breath of kings.
I thank my liege that in regard of me, he shortens 4 years of my son's exile. But little vantage shall I reap thereby. For ere the 6 years that he hath to spend can change their moons and bring their times about, my oil-dried lamp and time-bewasted light shall be extinct with age and endless night. My inch of taper will be burnt and done, and blindfold death not let me see my son.
Why, uncle, thou hast many years to live.
But not a minute, king, that thou canst give. Shorten my days thou canst with sullen sorrow, and pluck nights from me, but not lend a morrow. Thou canst help time to furrow me with age, but stop no wrinkle in this pilgrimage. Thy word is current with him for my death, but dead thy kingdom cannot buy my breath.
Thy son is banished upon good advice, where to thy tongue a party verdict gave. Why at our justice seemst thou then to lour?
Things sweet to taste improve in digestion sour. You urged me as a judge, but I'd rather you would bid me argue like a father. Oh, had it been a stranger, not my child, to smooth his fault, I should have been more mild. A partial slander sought I to avoid, and in the sentence my own life destroyed. Alas, I looked when some of you should say I was too strict to make mine own away. But you gave me leave to my unwilling tongue against my will to do myself this wrong.
Cousin, farewell. And uncle, bid him so. 6 years we banish him, and he shall go.
Cousin, farewell. What presence must not know, from where you do remain, let paper show.
My lord, no leave take I, for I will ride as far as land will let me by your side.
Oh, to what purpose dost thou hoard thy words, that thou returnest no greeting to thy friends?
I have too few to take my leave of you, when the tongue's office should be prodigal to breathe the abundant dolor of the heart.
Thy grief is but thy absence for a time.
Joy absent, grief is present for that time.
What is 6 winters? They are quickly gone.
To men enjoy, but grief makes 1 hour 10.
Call it a travel that thou takest for pleasure.
My heart will sigh when I miscall it so, which finds it an enforced pilgrimage.
The sullen passage of thy weary steps esteem as foil wherein thou art to set the precious jewel of thy home return.
Nay, rather every tedious stride I make will but remember me what a deal of world I wander from the jewels that I love. Must I not serve a long apprenticeship to foreign passages, and in the end, having my freedom, boast of nothing else but that I was a journeyman to grief?
All places that the eye of heaven visits are to a wise man ports and happy havens. Teach thy necessity to reason thus. There is no virtue like necessity. Think not the king did banish thee, but thou the king. Woe doth the heavier sit where it perceives it is but fately born. Go, say I sent thee forth to purchase honor, and not the king exiled thee, or suppose devouring pestilence hangs in our air, and thou art flying to a fresher clime. Look what thy soul holds dear. Imagine it to lie that way thou goest, not whence thou comest. Suppose the singing birds musicians, the grass whereupon treadest the present strewed, the flowers fair ladies, and thy steps no more than a delightful measure or a dance. For gnarling sorrow hath thus power to bite the man that mocks it and sets it light.
Oh, who can hold a fire in his hand by thinking on the frosty carcasses, or cloy the hungry edge of appetite by bare imagination of a feast, or wallow naked in December snow by thinking on fantastic summer's heat? Oh, no. The apprehension of the good gives but the greater feeling to the worse. Fell sorrow's tooth that never rankle more than when he bites, but lancet not the sore.
Come, come, my son, I'll bring thee on thy way. Had I thy youth and cause, I would not stay.
And England's ground, farewell. Sweet soil, adieu. My mother and my nurse that bears me yet. Where'er I wander, boast of this I can, though banished, yet a true-born Englishman.
Act 1, Scene 4, The Court. Enter King Richard II, with Bagot and Green at one door, and the Duke of O'Merle at another.
We did observe. Cousin O'Merle, how far brought you High Hereford on his way?
I brought High Hereford, if you call him so, but to the next highway, and there I left him.
And say, what store of parting tears were shed?
Faith, none for me, except the northeast wind, which then blew bitterly against our faces, awaked the sleeping Riam, and so by chance did grace our hollow parting with a tear.
What said our cousin when you parted with him?
Farewell? And for my heart disdains that my tongue should so profane the word that taught me craft to counterfeit depression of such grief, that word seemed buried in my sorrow's grave. Mary, would the word farewell have lengthened hours and added years to his short banishment? He should have had a volume of farewells, but since it would not, he had none of me.
He is our cousin, but 'tis doubt, when time shall call him home for banishment, whether our kinsman come to see his friends. Ourself and Bushy observed his courtship to the common people, how he did seem to dive into their hearts with humble and familiar courtesy. What reverence he did throw away on slaves, wooing poor craftsmen with the craft of smiles and patient underbearing of his fortune, as 'twere to banish their affects with him. Off goes his bonnet to an oyster wench, a brace of draymen bid God speed him well, and had the tribute of his supple knee with thanks, my countrymen, my loving friends, as were our England in reversion his, and he our subjects' next degree in hope.
Well,
He is gone, and with him go these thoughts. Now for the rebels which stand out in Ireland, expedient manage must be made, my liege, ere further leisure yield them further means, for their advantage and your highness's loss.
We will ourselves in person to this war, and for our coffers with too great a court and liberal largesse are grown somewhat light, we are enforced to farm our royal realm, the revenue whereof shall furnish us for our affairs in hand. If that come short, our substitutes at home shall have blank charters, whereto, when they shall know what men are rich, they shall subscribe them for large sums of gold, and send them after to supply our wants, for we will make for Ireland presently. Bushy, what news?
Old John of Gaunt is grievous sick, my lord, suddenly taken and hath sent post-haste to entreat your majesty to visit him.
Where lies he?
At Ely House.
Now put it God in the physician's mind to help him to his grave immediately. The lining of his coffers shall make coats to deck our soldiers for these Irish wars. Come, gentlemen, let's all go visit him. Pray God we may make haste and come too late.
Amen.
Amen.
2, Scene 1, Ely House. Enter John of Gaunt, sick, with the Duke of York and company.
Will the king come that I might breathe my last in wholesome counsel to his unstayed youth?
Vex not yourself, nor strive not with your breath, for all in vain comes counsel to his ear.
Oh, but they say the tongues of dying men enforce attention like deep harmony. Where words are scarce, they are seldom spent in vain, for they breathe truth that breathe the breath of words in pain. He that no more must say is listened more than they whom youth and ease have taught to gloze. More are men's ends marked than their lives before. The setting sun and music at the close, as the last taste of sweets is sweetest last. Writ in remembrance more than things long past. Though Richard my life's counsel would not hear, my death's sad tale may yet undeaf his ear.
No, it is stopped with other flattering sounds, as praises, of whose taste the wise are fond, lascivious meters, to whose venom sound the open ear of youth doth always listen. Report of fashions in proud Italy, whose manners still our tardy apish nation limps after in base imitation. Where doth the world's thrust forth of vanity, so it be new there's no respect how vile, that is not quickly buzzed into his ears. Then all too late comes counsel to be heard. Where will doth mutiny with wit's regard direct not him whose way himself will choose. 'Tis breath thou lack'st, and that breath wilt thou lose.
Methinks I am a prophet new inspired, and thus expiring do foretell him his rash, fierce blaze of riot cannot last. For violent fires soon burn out themselves. Small showers last long, but sudden storms are short. He tires betimes that spurs too fast betimes. With eager feeding food doth choke the feeder. Light vanity, insatiate cormorant, consuming means soon preys upon itself. This royal throne of kings, this sceptred isle, this earth of majesty, this seat of Mars, this other Eden, demi-paradise, this fortress built by nature herself against infection in the hand of war, this happy breed of men, this little world, this precious stone set in the silver sea, which serves it in the office of a wall or as a moat defensive to a house against the envy of less happier lands. This blessed plot, this earth, this realm, this England, this nurse, this teeming womb of kings, feared by their breed and famous by their birth, renowned for their deeds as far from home for Christian service and true chivalry, as is a sepulchre and stubborn jewelry of the world's ransom, blessed Mary's Son. This land of such dear souls, this dear, dear land, dear for her reputation through the world, is now leased out. I die pronouncing it. like a tenement or pelting farm. England, bound in with the triumphant sea, whose rocky shore beats back the envious siege of watery Neptune, is now bound in with shame, with inky blots and rotten parchment bonds. That England that was wont to conquer others hath made a shameful conquest of itself. Ah, would the scandal vanish with my life? How happy then were my ensuing death!
Enter King Richard II and Queen, Duke of Almerle, Bushy Green Bagot, Lord Ross, and Lord Willoughby.
The king is come deal mildly with his youth, for young hot colts being rained do rage the more.
How fares our noble uncle, Lancaster?
What comfort, man. How is with aged Gaunt?
Oh, how that name befits my composition. Old Gaunt indeed, and Gaunt in being old. Within me grief hath kept a tedious fast, and who abstains from meat that is not gaunt? For sleeping England long time have I watched. Watching breeds leanness, leanness is all gaunt. The pleasure that some fathers feed upon is my strict fast, I mean my children's looks. And therein fasting hast thou made me gaunt. Gaunt am I for the grave, gaunt as a grave, whose hollow womb inherits naught but bones.
Can sick men play so nicely with their names?
No, misery makes sport to mock itself. Since thou dost seek to kill my name in me, I mock my name, great king, to flatter thee.
Should dying men flatter with those that live?
No, no. Men living flatter those that die.
Thou now a dying sayest thou flatterest me.
Oh no, thou diest, though I the sicker be.
I am in health, I breathe, and see thee ill.
Now he that made me knows I see thee ill. Ill in myself to see, and in thee seeing ill. Thy deathbed is no lesser than thy land, wherein thou liest in reputation sick. And thou too, careless patient as thou art, commits thy anointed body to the cure of those physicians that would first wounded thee. 1,000 flatterers sit within thy crown, whose compass is no bigger than thy head. And yet, encaged in so small a verge, the waste is no whit lesser than thy land. Oh, had thy grandsire with a prophet's eye seen how his son's son should destroy his sons, from forth thy reach he would have laid thy shame, deposing thee before thou wert possessed, which art possessed now to depose thyself. Why, cousin, wert thou regent of the world, it were a shame to let this land by lease, but for thy world enjoying but this land, is it not more than shame to shame it so? Landlord of England art thou now, not king. Thy state of law is bondslave to the law, and
a lunatic, lean-witted fool, presuming on an ague's privilege, darest with thy frozen admonition make pale our cheek, chasing the royal blood with fury from his native residence. Now by my seat's right, royal majesty, were thou not brother to great Edward's son, this tongue that runs so roundly in thy head should run thy head from thy unreverent shoulders.
Oh, spare me not, my brother Edward's son, for that I was his father Edward's son. That blood already, like the pelican, hast thou tapped out and drunkenly caroused. My brother Gloucester, plain well-meaning soul, whom fair befall in heaven amongst happy souls, may be a precedent and witness good that thou respect'st not spilling Edward's blood. Join with the present sickness that I have, and thy unkindness be like crooked age, to crop at once a too long withered flower. Live in thy shame, but die not shame with thee. These words hereafter thy tormentors be. Convey me to my bed, and to my grave. Love they to live that love and honor have.
And let them die that age and sullens have, for both hast thou, and both become the grave.
I do beseech your majesty, impute his words to wayward sickliness and age in him. He loves you on my life, holds you dear, as Harry, Duke of Hereford, were he here.
Right. You say true. As Hereford's love, so his. As theirs, so mine, and all be as it is.
My liege, old Gaunt commends him to your majesty.
What says he?
Nothing. All is said. His tongue is now a stringless instrument. Words, life, and all. Old Lancaster hath spent.
York the next that must be bankrupt so. Though death be poor, it ends a mortal woe.
The ripest fruit first falls, and so doth he. His time is spent. Our pilgrimage must be. So much for that. Now, for our Irish wars, we must supplant those rough, rug-headed kerns which live like venom where no venom else, but only they have privilege to live. And for these great affairs, do ask some charge. Towards our assistance, we do seize to us the plate, coin, revenues, and movables whereof our uncle Gaunt did stand possessed.
How long shall I be patient? Ah, how long? Shall tender duty make me suffer wrong? Not Gloucester's death, nor Hereford's banishment, nor Gaunt's rebukes, nor England's private wrongs, nor the prevention of poor Bolingbroke about his marriage, nor my own disgrace, have ever made me sour my patient cheek, or bend one wrinkle on my sovereign's face. I am the last of Edward's sons, of whom thy father, Prince of Wales, was first in war, with never lion raged more fierce, in peace was never gentle lamb more mild, than was that young and princely gentleman. His face thou hast, for even so looked he, accomplished with the number of thy hours, but when he frowned it was against the French, and not against his friends. And his noble hand did will what he did spend, and spent not that which his triumphant father's hand had won. His hands were guilty of no kindred blood, but bloody with the enemies of his kin. Oh, Richard, York is too far gone with grief, or else he never would compare between...
Why, uncle, what's the matter?
Oh, my liege, pardon me if you please, if not, I please not to be pardoned. I'm content with, or seek you to seize and gripe into your hands the royalties and ripes of banished Hereford. Is not Gaunt dead? Doth not Hereford live? Was not Gaunt just, and is not Harry true? Did not the one deserve to have an heir? Is not his heir well-deserving son? Take Hereford's rights away, and take from time his charters and his customary rights. Let not tomorrow then ensue today. Be not thyself, for how art thou king? But by sequence and fair succession. Now for God, God forbid I say true, if you do wrongly seize Hereford's rights, call in letters patent that he hath by his attorneys general to sue his livery and deny his offered homage, you pluck 1,000 dangers on your head. You rouse 1,000 well-disposed hearts, and prick my tender patience to those thoughts which honour and allegiance cannot think.
Think what you will. We will seize into his lands, his plate, his goods, his money, and his lands.
I'll not be by the while, my liege. Farewell. What will ensue hereof, there's none can tell, but by bad courses may be understood that their events can never fall out good.
Go, Bushy, to the Earl of Wiltshire straight. Bid him repair to us to Ely House to see this business. Tomorrow next we will for Ireland, and 'tis time, I trow, and we create, in absence of ourself, our Uncle York, Lord Governor of England, for he is just and always loved us well. Come on, our queen, tomorrow must we part. Be merry, for our time of stay is short.
Well, lords, the Duke of Lancaster is dead.
And living too, for now his son is Duke.
Barely in title, not in revenues.
Richly in both, if justice had her right.
My heart is great, but it must break with silence, ere it be disburdened by a liberal tongue.
Nay, speak thy mind, and let him ne'er speak more that speaks thy words again to do thee harm.
Since that thou wouldest speak to the Duke of Hereford, if it be so, out with it boldly, man. Quick is mine ear to hear good towards him.
No good at all that I can do for him, unless you call it good to pity him, bereft and gelded of his patrimony.
Oh, for God, 'tis shame such wrongs upborne in him, a royal prince, and many mo of noble blood in this declining land. The king is not himself, but basely led by flatterers and what they will inform merely in hate against any of us all. That will the king severely prosecute against us, our lives, our children, and our heirs.
The commons hath he piled with grievous taxes, and quite lost their hearts. The nobles hath he fined for ancient quarrels, and quite lost their hearts.
And daily new extractions are devised, and blanks, benevolences, and I wot not what. But what, a god's name doth become of this?
Wars have not wasted it, for warred he hath not, but basely yielded upon compromise, that which his noble ancestors achieved with blows. More hath he spent in peace than they in wars.
The Earl of Wiltshire hath the realm and farm.
The king's grown bankrupt, like a broken man.
Reproach and dissolution hangeth over him.
He hath no money for these Irish wars. His burthen is taxons notwithstanding, but by the robbing of the banished duke.
His noble kinsman, most degenerate king. But lords, we hear this fearful tempest sing, yet seek no shelter to avoid the storm. We see the wind sit sore upon our sails, yet we strike not, but securely perish.
We seek the very wreck that we must suffer, and unavoided in this danger now, for suffering is so the causes of our wrack.
Not so. Even through the hollow eyes of death I spy life peering, but I dare not say how near the tidings of our comfort is.
Nay, let us share thy thoughts, as thou dost ours.
Be confident to speak, Northumberland. We three are but thyself, and speaking so, thy words are but as thoughts. Therefore, be bold.
Then thus, I have from Port Le Blanc, a bay in Brittany, received intelligence that Harry, Duke of Hereford, Reynold Lord Cobham, the son of Richard of Arundel, that late broke from the Duke of Exeter, his brother, Archbishop late of Canterbury, Sir Thomas Erpingham, Sir John Ramsden, Sir John Norbury, Sir Robert Waterton, and Francis Coynt, all these well furnished by the Duke of Brittany, with 8 tall ships, 3,000 men of war, are making hither with all due expedients, and shortly mean to touch our northern shore. Perhaps they had ere this, but that they stay the first departing of the king for Ireland. If then we shall shake off our slavish yoke, imp out our drooping country's broken wing, redeem from broken pawn the blemished crown, wipe off the dust that hides our scepter's guilt, and make high majesty look like itself, away with me and post to Ravenspur. If you faint, as fearing to do so, stay and be secret, and myself will go.
To horse, urge doubts to them that fear.
Hold out my horse, and I will first be there.
2, Scene 2, the palace. Enter Queen, Bushy, and Bagot.
Madam, your majesty is too much sad. You promised when you parted with the king to lay aside life-harming heaviness and entertain a cheerful disposition.
To please the king I did. To please myself, I cannot do it. Yet I know no cause why I should welcome such a guest as grief, save bidding farewell to so sweet a guest as my sweet Richard. Yet again, methinks some unborn sorrow, ripe in fortune's womb, is coming towards me, and my inward soul with nothing trembles as something it grieves more than parting from my lord the king.
Each substance of a grief hath 20 shadows, which shows like grief itself, but is not so. For sorrow's eyes, glazed with blinding tears, divides one thing entire to many objects, like perspectives, which rightly gazed upon show nothing but confusion. Eye to awry, distinguished form. So your sweet majesty, looking awry upon your lord's departure, finds shapes of grief more than himself to wail, which, looked on as it is not but shadows of what it is not. Then, thrice gracious queen, more than your lord's departure, weep not, more's not seen, or if it be, 'tis with false sorrow's eye, which for things true weeps things imaginary.
It may be so, but yet my inward soul persuades me it is otherwise. However it be, I cannot but be sad. So heavy sad, as though unthinking on no thought I think, makes me think with heavy nothing, faint and shrink.
'Tis nothing but conceit, my gracious lady.
'Tis nothing less. Conceit is still derived from some forefather grief. Mine is not so. For nothing had begot my something grief, or something had the nothing that I grieve. 'Tis in reversion that I do possess, but what it is, that is not yet known. What? I cannot name it. This nameless woe I wot.
God save your majesty, and well met, gentlemen. I hope the king is not yet shipped for Ireland.
Why hopest thou so? 'Tis better he is, for his designs crave haste, his haste good hope. Then wherefore dost thou hope he's not shipped?
That he, our hope, might have retired his power and driven into despair an enemy's hope. Who strongly hath set footing in this land, the banished Bolingbroke repeals himself, and with uplifted arms is safe arrived at Ravenspur.
Now God in heaven forbid.
Ah, madam, 'tis too true. And that is worse, the Lord Northumberland, his son, young Henry Percy, the lords of Ross, Beaumont, and Willoughby, with all their powerful friends, are fled to him.
Why have you not proclaimed Northumberland and all the rest revolted faction traitors?
We have. Whereupon the Earl of Worcester hath broke his staff, resigned his stewardship, and all the household servants fled with him to Bolingbroke.
So, Green, that are the midwife to my woe, and Bolingbroke my sorrow's dismal heir. Now hath my soul brought forth her prodigy, and I, a gasping new delivered mother, have woe to woe, sorrow to sorrow joined.
Despair not, madam.
Who shall hinder me? I will despair and be at enmity with cousin in hope. He's a flatterer, a parasite, a keeper back of death, who gently would dissolve the bands of life, which false hope lingers in extremity.
Here comes the Duke of York.
With signs of war about his aged neck, oh, full of careful business, or his look. Uncle, for God's sake, speak comfortable words.
Should I do so, I should belie my thoughts. Comfort's in heaven, and we are on the earth, where nothing lives but crosses, cares, and grief. Your husband he's gone to save far off, whilst others come to make him lose at home. Here am I left to underprop his land, who weak with age cannot support myself. Now comes the sick hour that his surfeit made. Now shall he try his friends that flattered him.
My lord, your son was gone before I came.
He was? Why so? Go all which way it will. The nobles have fled, the commons cold, and will, I fear, revolt on Hereford's side. Sirrah, get thee to Plashy, to my sister Gloucester. Bid her send me presently £1,000. Hold, take my ring.
My lord, I had forgot to tell your lordship. Today, as I came by, I called there, but I shall grieve to report the rest.
What is, knave?
An hour before I came, the Duchess died.
God for his mercy, what a tide of woes comes rushing on this woeful land at once. I know not what to do. I would to God, so my untruth had not provoked him to it, the king had cut my head off with my brothers. What? Are there no posts dispatched for Ireland? How shall we do for money for these wars? Come, sister, cousin, I would say, pray pardon me. Go, fellow, get thee home, provide some carts, and bring away the armour that is there. Gentlemen, will you go muster men? If I know how or which way to order these affairs, thus thrust disorderly into my hands, never believe me. Both are my kinsmen. The one is my sovereign, whom both my oath and duty bids defend. The other, again, is my kinsman, whom the king hath wronged, whom conscience and my kindred bids to right. Well, something we must do. Come, cousin, I'll dispose of you. Gentlemen, go muster up your men and meet me presently at Berkeley. I should to Plashy too. But time will not permit. All is uneven, and everything is left at 6 and 7.
The wind sets fair for news to go for Ireland, but none returns. For us to levy power proportional to the enemy is all impossible.
Besides, our nearness to the king in love is near the hate of those love not the king.
And that's the wavering commons, for their love lies in their purses, and whoso empties them by so much fills their heart with deadly hate.
Wherein the king stands generally condemned.
If judgment lie in them, then so do we, because we have ever been near the king.
Well, I will for refuge straight to Bristow Castle. The Earl of Wiltshire is already there.
Thither will I with you, for little office the hateful commons will perform for us, except like birds to tear us all to pieces. Will you go along with us?
No, I will to Ireland to his majesty. Farewell. If heart's presses be not vain, we three here never shall meet again.
That's as York thrives to beat back Bolingbroke.
Alas, poor Duke! The task he undertakes is numbering sands and drinking oceans dry. Where one on his side fights, thousands will fly. Farewell at once, for all, and ever.
Well, again.
I fear me, never.
2, Scene 3. Wilds in Gloucestershire. Enter Henry Bolingbroke and Northumberland with forces.
How far is it, my lord, to Berkeley now?
Believe me, noble lord, I am a stranger here in Gloucestershire. These high wild hills and rough uneven ways draws out our miles and makes them wearisome. And yet your fair discourse hath been as sugar, making the hard way sweet and delectable. But I bethink me what a weary way from Ravenspur to Cotswold will be found in Ross and Willoughby, wanting your company, which I protest hath very much beguiled the tediousness and process of my travel. But theirs is sweetened with the hope to have the present benefit which I possess. And hope to joy is little less in joy than hope enjoyed. By this the weary lords shall make their way seem short, as mine hath done by sight of what I have, your noble company.
Of much less value is my company than your good words. But who comes here?
It is my son, young Harry Percy, sent from my brother Worcester whencesoever. Harry, how fares your uncle?
I thought, my lord, to have learned his health of you.
Why, is he not with the Queen?
No, my good lord, he hath forsook the court, broken his staff of office, and dispersed the household of the king.
What was his reason? He was not so resolved when last we spake together.
Because your lordship was proclaimed traitor. But he, my lord, is gone to Ravensburg to offer service to the Duke of Hereford, and sent me over by Berkeley to discover what power the Duke of York had levied there, then with directions to repair to Ravensburg.
Have you forgot the Duke of Hereford, boy?
No, my good lord, for that is not forgot, which never did I remember. To my knowledge, I never in my life did look on him.
Then learn to know him now. This is the Duke.
My gracious lord, I tender you my service, such as it is, being tender, raw, and young, which elder days shall ripen and confirm to more approved service and desert.
I thank thee, gentle Percy, and be sure I count myself in nothing else so happy as in the soul remembering my good friends. And as my fortune ripens with thy love, it shall be still thy true love's recompense. My heart this covenant makes, my hand thus seals it.
How far is it to Berkeley? And what stir keeps good old York there with his men of war?
There stands the castle by yon tuft of trees, manned with 300 men, as I have heard, and in it are the lords of York, Berkeley, and Seymour, none else of name and noble estate.
Here come the lords of Ross and Willoughby, bloody with spurring, fiery red with haste.
Welcome, my lords. I wot your love pursues a banished traitor. All my treasury is yet but unfelt thanks, which more enriched shall be your love's and labor's recompense.
Your presence makes us rich, most noble lord.
Far surmounts our labor to attain it.
Evermore thanks the exchequer of the poor, which till my infant fortune comes to years, stands for my bounty. But who comes here?
It is my lord of Berkeley, as I guess.
My lord of Hereford, my message is to you.
My lord, my answer is to Lancaster, and I am come to seek that name in England, and I must find that title in your tongue before I make reply to aught you say.
Mistake me not, my lord, 'tis not my meaning to race one title of your honor out. To you, my lord, I come, what lord you will, from the most gracious regent of this land, the Duke of York, to know what pricks you on to take advantage of the absent time and fright our native peace with self-born arms.
I shall not need transport my words by you. Here comes his grace in person, my noble uncle.
Show me thy humble heart and not thy knee, whose duty is deceivable and false.
My gracious uncle.
Tut, tut. Grace me no grace, nor uncle me no uncle. I'm no traitor's uncle, and that word grace in an ungracious mouth is but profane. Why have those banished and forbidden legs dared once to touch a dust of England's ground? But then more why? Why have they dared to march so many miles upon her peaceful bosom, frighting her pale-faced villages with war and ostentation of despised arms? Comest thou because the anointed king is hence? Why, foolish boy, the king is left behind, and in my loyal bosom lies his power. Were I but now the lord of such hot youth, as when brave Gaunt, thy father, and myself rescued the Black Prince, that young Mars of men, from forth the ranks of many thousand French, oh then, how quickly should this arm of mine, now prisoner to the palsy, chastise thee and minister correction to thy fault.
My gracious uncle, let me know my fault. On what condition stands it, and wherein?
Even in condition of the worst degree, in gross rebellion and detested treason. Thou art a banished man, and here art come, before the expiration of thy time, in braving arms against thy sovereign.
As I was banished Hereford, but as I come for Lancaster. And noble uncle, I beseech your grace, look on my wrongs with an indifferent eye. You are my father, for methinks in you I see old Gaunt alive. Oh then, my father, will you permit that I shall stand condemned? A wandering vagabond, my rights and royalties plucked from my arms perforce and given away to upstart unthrifts? Wherefore was I born? If that my cousin be king in England, it must be granted I am Duke of Lancaster. You have a son, Omer, my noble cousin. Had he first died, and he been thus trod down, he should have found his uncle Gaunt a father to rouse his wrongs and chase them to the bay. I am denied to sue my livery here, my letters, and yet my letters' patents give me leave. My father's goods are all distrained and sold, and these and all are all misemployed. What would you have me do? I am a subject, and I challenge law. Attorneys are denied me, and therefore personally I lay my claim to my inheritance of free descent.
The noble Duke hath been too much abused.
It stands your grace upon to do him right.
And by his endowments are made great.
My lords of England, let me tell you this. I have had feeling of my cousin's wrongs and laboured all I could to do him right. But in this kind to come, in braving arms, be his own carver and cut out his way to find out right with wrong, it may not be. And you that do abet him in this kind, cherish rebellion, and are rebels all.
The noble Duke hath sworn his coming is but for his own. And for the right of that, we have all strongly sworn to give him aid and let him ne'er see joy that breaks that oath.
Well, well, I see the issue of these arms. I cannot mend it, I must needs confess, because my power is weak and all ill left. But if I could, by him that gave me life, I would attach you all and make you stoop unto the sovereign mercy of the king. But since I cannot, be it known unto you, I do remain as neuter. So fare you well. Unless you please to enter in the castle and there repose you for the night.
An offer, uncle, that we will accept. But we must win your grace to go with us to Bristol Castle, which they say is held by Bushy Bagot and their accomplices, the caterpillars of the Commonwealth, which I have sworn to weed and pluck away.
It may be I will go with you, but yet I'll pause. For I am loath to break our country's laws, nor friends nor foes to me welcome you are. Things past redress are now with me past care.
Act 2, Scene 4. A camp in Wales. Enter Earl of Salisbury and a Welsh captain.
My lord of Salisbury, we have stayed 10 days and hardly kept our countrymen together, and yet we hear no tidings from the king. Therefore we will disperse ourselves. Farewell.
Stay yet another day, thou trusty Welshman. The king reposes all his confidence in thee.
'Tis that the king is dead. We will not stay. The bay tree in our country are all withered, and meteor fright and fixed stars of heaven. The pale-faced moon looks bloody on the earth, and lean-looked prophet whisper fearful change.
Ah, Richard, with
Our
the
country.
eyes heavy mind, I see thy glory like a shooting star fall to the base of earth from the firmament. Thy sunsets weeping in the lowly west, witnessing storms to come. Woe! Thy friends are fled to wait upon thy foes, and pressingly to thy good all fortune goes.
Act 3, Scene 1, Bristol, before the castle. Enter Henry Bolingbroke, Duke of York, Northumberland, Lord Ross, Henry Percy, Lord Willoughby with Bushy and Green. Prisoners.
Bring forth these men. Bushy and Green, I will not vex your souls, since presently your souls must part your bodies, with too much urging your pernicious lives for 'twere no charity, yet to wash your blood from off my hands. Here in the view of men, I will unfold some causes of your death. You have misled a prince, a royal king, a happy gentleman in blood and lineaments, by you unhappy and disfigured clean. You have in manner with your sinful hours made a divorce betwixt his queen and him, broke the possession of a royal bed, and stained the beauty of a fair queen's cheeks with tears drawn from her eyes by your foul wrongs. Myself a prince, by fortune of my birth, near to the king in blood and near in love, till you did make him misinterpret me, have stooped my neck under your injuries and sighed my English breath in foreign clouds, eaten the bitter bread of banishment, whilst you have fed upon my signories, disparked my parks and felled my forests, from mine own windows torn my household coat, raced out my impress, leaving me no sign save men's opinions and my living blood to show the world I am a gentleman. This and much more than twice all this, condemns you to the death. See them delivered over to execution in the hand of death.
More welcome is the stroke of death to me than Bolingbroke, England. Lords, farewell.
My comfort is that heaven will take our souls and plague injustice with the pains of hell.
My lord Northumberland, see them dispatched. Uncle, you say the queen is at your house. For God's sake, fairly let her be entreated. Tell her I send to her my kind commends. Take special care and greetings, that my greetings be delivered.
A gentleman of mine I have dispatched with letters of your love to her at large.
Thanks, gentle uncle. Come, lords, away to fight with Glendower and his complices, a while to work, and after holiday.
3, Scene 2, the coast of Wales, a castle in view. Drums flourish in colours. Enter King Richard II, the Bishop of Carlisle, Duke of O'Merle, and soldiers.
Buckle the castle, call they this at hand?
Yea, my lord, how brooks your grace the air after your late tossing on the breaking sea?
Needs must I like it well. I weep for joy to stand upon my kingdom once again. Dear earth, I do salute thee with my hand, though rebels wound thee with their horses' hoofs. As a long-parted mother with her child plays fondly with her tears and smiles in meeting, so, weeping, smiling, greet I thee, my earth, and do thee favors with my royal hands. Feed not thy sovereign's foe, my gentle earth, nor with thy sweets comfort his ravenous sense, but let thy spiders that suck up thy venom and heavy-gated toads lie in their way, doing annoyance to the treacherous feet which with usurping steps do trample thee. Yield stinging nettles to mine enemies, and when they from thy bosom pluck a flower, guard it, I pray thee, with a lurking adder, whose double tongue may with a mortal touch throw death upon thy sovereign's enemies. Mock not my senseless conjuration, lords. This earth shall have a feeling, and these stones prove armed soldiers ere her native king shall falter under foul rebellion's arms.
Fear not, my lord. That power that made you king hath power to keep you king in spite of all. The means that heaven yields must be embraced and not neglected, else heaven would, and we will not. Heaven's offer we refuse, the proffered means of succor and redress.
He means, my lord, that we are too remiss, while Bolingbroke, through our security, grows strong and great in substance and in power.
Discomfortable cousin, knowest thou not that when the searching eye of heaven is hid behind the globe that lights the lower world, then thieves and robbers rage abroad unseen in murders and in outrage boldly here, but when from under this terrestrial ball he fires the proud tops of the eastern pines and darts his light through every guilty hole, then murders, treasons, and detested sins, the cloak of night being plucked from off their backs, stand bare and naked, trembling at themselves. So when this thief, this traitor Bolingbroke, who all this while hath revelled in the night whilst we were wandering with the Antipodes, shall see us rising in our throne, the east, his treasons will sit blushing in his face, not able to endure the sight of day, but self-affrighted tremble at his sin. Not all the water in the rough, rude sea can wash the balm off from an anointed king. The breath of worldly men cannot depose the deputy elected by the Lord. For every man that Bolingbroke hath pressed to lift shrewd steel against our golden crown, God, for his Richard, hath in heavenly pay a glorious angel. Then, if angels fight, weak men must fall, for heaven still guards the right. Welcome, my lord. How far off lies your power?
Nor near nor farther off, my gracious lord, and this weak arm. Discomfort guides my tongue and bids me speak nothing but despair. One day too late, I fear me, noble lord, hath clouded all thy happy days on earth. Oh, call back yesterday, bid time return, and thou shalt have 12 fighting men. Today, unhappy day, too late. Overthrow thy joys, friends, fortune in thy state, for all the Welshmen, hearing thou wert dead, are gone to Bolingbroke, just fled.
Comfort, my liege. Why looks your grace so pale?
But now the blood of 20,000 men did triumph in my face, and they are fled. Until so much blood that there come again, have I not reason to look pale and dead? All souls that will be safe, lie for my side, for time hath set a blot upon my pride.
Comfort, my liege. Remember who you are.
I had forgot myself. Am I not king? Awake, thou coward majesty, thou sleepest. Was not the king's name 20,000 names? Arm, arm, my name, a puny subject strikes at thy great glory. Look not to the ground, ye favorites of a king, are we not high? High be our thoughts. I know my uncle York hath power enough to serve our turn. But who comes here?
More health and happiness betide my liege, than can my care-tuned tongue deliver him.
Mine ear is open and my heart prepared. The worst is worldly loss thou canst unfold. Say, is my kingdom lost? Why, 'twas my care, and what loss is it to be rid of care? Strives Bolingbroke to be as great as we? Greater he shall not be, if he serve God, we'll serve him too, and be his fellow so. Revolt our subjects, that we cannot mend. They break their faith to God as well as us. Cry woe, destruction, ruin, and decay. The worst is death, and death will have his day.
Glad am I that your highness is so armed to bear the tidings of calamity. Like an unseasonable stormy day, which makes the silver rivers drown their shores, as if the world were all dissolved to tears. So high above his limit swells the rage of Bolingbroke, covering your fearful land with hard bright steel, and hearts harder than steel. White beards have armed their thin and hairless scalps against thy majesty. Boys with women's voices strive to speak big and clap their female joints, in stiff unwieldy arms against thy crown. Very beadsmen learn to bend their bows of double fatal hue against thy state. Yea, distaff women manage rusty bills against thy seat. Both young and old rebel, and all goes worse than I have power to tell.
Too well thou tell'st a tale so ill. Where's the Earl of Wiltshire? Where's Bagot? What has become of Bushy? Where's Green, that they have let the dangerous enemy measure our confines with such peaceful steps? If we prevail, their heads shall pay for it. I warrant they have made peace with Bolingbroke.
Peace have they made with him indeed, my lord.
Oh, villains, vipers, damned without redemption. Dogs, easily won to fawn on any man. Snakes, in my heart blood warmed, that sting my heart. 3 Judases, each one thrice worse than Judas. Would they make peace? Terrible hell, make war upon their spotted souls for this.
Sweet love, I see, changing his property turns to the sourest and most deadly hate. Again uncurse their souls. Their peace is made with heads and not with hands. Those whom you curse have felt the worst of death's destroying wound and lie full low, graved in the hollow ground.
Is Bushy, Green, and the Earl of Wiltshire dead?
Aye, all of them at Bristol lost their heads.
Where is the Duke my father with his power?
No matter where. Of comfort no man speak. Let's talk of graves, of worms, and epitaphs. Make dust our paper, and with rainy eyes write sorrow on the bosom of the earth. Let's choose executors, and talk of wills, and yet not so. For what can we bequeath save our deposed bodies to the ground? Our lands, our lives, and all are Bolingbroke's. And nothing can we call our own but death. That small model of the barren earth which serves as paste and cover to our bones. For God's sake, let us sit upon the ground and tell sad stories of the death of kings. Some have been deposed, some slain in war, some haunted by the ghosts they have deposed, some poisoned by their wives, some sleeping killed, all murdered. For within the hollow crown that rounds the mortal temples of a king keeps death his court. And there the antic sits, scoffing his state and grinning at his pomp, allowing him a breath, a little scene to monarchize, be feared, and kill with looks, infusing him with self and vain conceit, as if this flesh which walls about our life were brass, impregnable, and humored thus comes at the last, and with a little pin bores through his castle wall, and farewell, king. Cover your heads, and mock not flesh and blood with solemn reverence. Throw away respect, tradition, form, and ceremonious duty, for you have but mistook me all this while. I live with bread like you. Feel want, taste grief, need friends. Subjected thus, how can you say to me, I am a king?
My lord, wise men ne'er sit and wail their woes, but presently prevent the ways to wail. Fear the foe, since fear oppresseth strength, gives in your weakness strength unto your foe, and so your follies fight against yourself. Fear is vain. No worse can come to fight, and fight and die is death destroying death, where fearing dying pays death servile breath.
My father hath the power, and inquire of him and learn to make a body of a limb.
Thou chidest me well. Proud Bolingbroke, I come to change blows with thee for our day of doom. This ague fit of fear is overblown. An easy task it is to win our own. Say, Scroop, where lies our uncle with his power? Speak sweetly, man, although thy looks be sour.
Men judge by the complexion of the sky, the state and inclination of the day. So may you, by my dull and heavy eye. My tongue hath but a heavier tale to say. I play the torturer by small and small to lengthen out the worst that must be spoken. Your uncle York is joined with Bolingbroke, and all your northern castles yielded up, and all your southern gentlemen in arms upon his party.
Thou hast said enough. Beshrew thee, cousin, which didst lead me forth of that sweet way I was in to despair. What say you now? What comfort have we now? By heaven, I'll hate him everlastingly that bids me be of comfort any more. Go to Flint Castle. There I'll pine away. A king woe's slave shall kingly woe obey. That power I have, discharge, and let them go to heir the land that hath some hope to grow. For I have none. Let no man speak again to alter this, for counsel is but vain.
My liege, one word.
He does me double wrong that wounds me with the flatteries of his tongue. Discharge my followers. Let them hence away, from Richard's night to Bolingbroke's fair day.
Act 3, Scene 3. Wales, before Flint Castle. Enter with drum and colours Bolingbroke, Duke of York, Northumberland, and attendants.
So, that by this intelligence we learn the Welshmen are dispersed, and Salisbury is gone to meet the king who lately landed with some few private friends upon this coast.
The news is very fair and good, my lord. Richard, not far from hence, hath hid his head.
It would beseem the Lord Northumberland to say King Richard, alack the heavy day, when such a sacred king should hide his head.
Your grace mistakes. Only to be brief, let die his title, lad.
The time hath been. Would you have been so brief with him, he would have been so brief with you, to shorten you for taking so the head, your whole head's length.
Mistake not, uncle, further than you should.
Take not, good cousin, further than you should, lest you mistake. The heavens are o'er our heads.
I know it, uncle, and oppose not myself against their will. But who comes here? Welcome, Harry. What? Will not this castle yield?
The castle royally is manned, my lord, against thy entrance.
Royally? Why? It contains no king.
Yes, my good lord, it doth contain a king. King Richard lies within the limits of yon lime and stone, and with him are the Lord O'Merle, Lord Salisbury, Sir Stephen Scrope, besides a clergyman of holy reverence, who I cannot learn.
Or belike it is the Bishop of Carlisle.
Noble lords, go to the rude ribs of that ancient castle. Through brazen trumpet, send the breath of parley into his ruined ears, and thus deliver. Henry Bolingbroke on both his knees doth kiss King Richard's hand, and sends allegiance and true faith of heart to his most royal person. Hither come, even at his feet, to lay my arms in power, provided that my banishment be repealed and lands restored again be freely granted. If not, I'll use the advantage of my power and lay the summer's dust with showers of blood rain from the wounds of slaughtered Englishmen. The which, how far off from the mind of Bolingbroke is such crimson tempest should be drenched the fresh green lap of fair King Richard's land. My stooping duty tenderly shall show. Go signify as much, while here we march upon this plain, this grassy carpet of this plain. Let's march without the noise of threatening drum, that from this castle's tattered battlements our fair appointments may be well perused. Methinks King Richard and myself should meet with no less terror than the elements of fire and water, when their thundering shock at meeting tears the cloudy cheeks of heaven. He be the fire, I'll be the yielding water, the rage be his, whilst on the earth I rain my waters. On the earth, and not on him. March on, and mark King Richard how he looks.
Enter on the walls King Richard II, the Bishop of Carlisle, Duke of O'Merle, Sir Stephen Scrope, and Earl of Salisbury.
See, King Richard doth himself appear, as doth the blushing discontented sun from out the fiery portal of the east, when he perceives the envious clouds are bent to dim his glory, and to stain the track of his bright passage to the Occident.
Yet looks he like a king. Behold his eye, as bright as is the eagle's, lightens forth controlling majesty. Alack for woe, that any harm should stain so fair a show.
We are amazed, and thus long have we stood to watch the fearful bending of thy knee, because we thought ourselves thy lawful king. And if we be, how dare thy joints forget to pay their awful duty to our presence? If we be not, show us the hand of God that hath dismissed us from our stewardship. For well we know, no hand of blood and bone can gripe the sacred handle of our scepter, unless you do profane, steal, or usurp. And though you think that all as you have done have torn their souls by turning them from us, and we are barren and bereft of friends, yet know, my master, God omnipotent, is mustering in his clouds on our behalf armies of pestilence. And they shall strike your children yet unborn and unbegot, that lift your vassal hands against my head, and threat the glory of my precious crown. Tell Bolingbroke, for yonder methinks he stands, that every stride he makes upon my land is dangerous treason. He is come to open the purple testament of bleeding war, but ere the crown he looks for lives in peace, 10,000 bloody crowns of mother's sons shall ill become the flower of England's face, change the complexion of her maid-pale peace to scarlet indignation, and bedew her pastor's grass with faithful English blood.
The King of Heaven forbid, our Lord the King, should so with civil and uncivil arms be rushed upon. Thy thrice noble cousin, Harry Bolingbroke, doth humbly kiss thy hand, and by the honourable tomb he swears that stands upon your royal grandsire's bones, and by the royalties of both your bloods, currents that spring from one most gracious head, and by the buried hand of warlike Gaunt, and by the worth and honour of himself, comprising all that may be sworn or said, his coming hither hath no further scope than for his lineal royalty, and to beg enfranchisement immediate on his knees, which on thy royal party granted once, his glittering arms he will commend to dust, his barbed steeds to stables, and his heart to the faithful service of your majesty. This swears he as he is a prince and just, and as I am a gentleman, I credit him.
Northumberland, say thus the king returns. His noble cousin is right welcome hither, and all the number of his fair demands shall be accomplished without contradiction. With all the gracious uttering that thou hast, speak to his gentle hearing kind commends. We do debase ourselves, cousin, do we not, to look so poorly and to speak so fair? Should we call back Northumberland and send defiance to the traitor, and so die?
No, good my lord, let's fight with gentle words, till time lend friends and friends their helpful swords.
Oh God, this tongue of mine that laid the sentence of dread banishment on yon proud man should take it off again with words of sooth. Oh, that I were as great as is my grief, or lesser than my name, or that I could forget what I must have been, or not remember what I must be now. Swellest thou, proud heart? I'll give thee scope to beat, since foes have scope to beat both thee and me.
Northumberland comes back from Bolingbroke.
What must the king do now? Must he submit? The king shall do it. Must he be deposed? The king shall be contented. Must he lose the name of king? A god's name, let it go! I'll give my jewels for a set of beads, my gorgeous palace for an hermitage, my gay apparel for an almsman's gown, and my figured goblets for a dish of wood, my scepter for a palmer's walking staff, my subjects for a pair of carved saints, and my large kingdom for a little grave. A little grave, an obscure grave, or I'll be buried in the king's highway, some way of common trade where subjects' feet may hourly trample on their sovereign's head. For on my heart they tread now whilst I live, and buried once, why not upon my head? O Merle, thou weepest, my tender-hearted cousin. We'll make foul weather with despised tears, our sighs, and they shall lodge the summer corn, and make a dearth in this revolting land. Or Shall we play the wantons with our woes, and make some pretty match with shedding tears, as thus to drop them still upon one place, till they have fretted us a pair of graves within the earth, and therein laid, there lies. Two kinsmen digged the graves with weeping eyes. Would this not ill do well? Well, well, I see I talk but idly, and you laugh at me, most mighty prince, my lord Northumberland. What says King Bolingbroke? Will his majesty give Richard leave to live till Richard die? You make a leg, and Bolingbroke says aye.
My lord, in the base court he doth attend to speak with you. May it please you to come down.
Down, down I come, like glistering Phaethon, wanting the manage of unruly jades in the base court, where kings grow base, to come at traitors' calls and do them grace. In the base court, come down, down court, down king! For night owls shriek, or mounting larks should sing.
What says his majesty?
Sorrow and grief of heart makes him speak fondly like a frantic man. Yet he is come.
Stand all apart, and show fair duty to his majesty, my gracious lord.
Fair cousin, you debase your princely knee to make the base earth proud with kissing it. Me rather had my heart might feel your love than my unpleased eye see your courtesy. Up, cousin, up. Your heart is up, I know. Thus high at least, although your knee be low.
My gracious lord, I come but for my own.
Your own is yours, and I am yours, and all.
So far be mine, my most redoubted lord, as my true service shall deserve your love.
Well, you deserve. They well deserve to have that know the strongest and surest way to get. Uncle, give me your hands. Nay, dry your eyes. Tears show their love, but want their remedies. Cousin, I am too young to be your father, though you are old enough to be my heir. What you will have, I'll give, and willing too. For do we must what force will have us do. Set on towards London, cousin, is it so?
Yea, my good lord.
Then I must not say no.
Act 3, Scene 4. Langley, the Duke of York's garden. Enter the Queen and two ladies.
What sport shall we devise here in this garden to drive away this heavy thought of care?
Madam will play at bowls.
'Twill make me think the world is full of rubs, and that my fortune rubs against the bias.
Madam will dance.
Measure and delight. My poor heart is no measure keeps in grief. Therefore, no dancing, girl. Some other sport.
Madam will tell tales.
Of sorrow or of joy?
Of either, madam.
Of neither, girl. For of joy being altogether wanting, it doth remember me the more of sorrow. Or if of grief being altogether had, it adds more sorrow to my want of joy. For what I have, I need not to repeat, and what I want, it boots not to complain.
Madam, I'll sing.
'Tis well that thou hast cause, but thou shouldn't please me better. Wouldn't thou weep?
I could weep, madam. Would it do you good?
And I could sing, would weeping do me good, and never borrow any tear of thee. But stay, here come the gardeners. Let's step into the shadows of these trees. My wretchedness state of death against a change. Woe is forerun with woe.
Go, bind thou up young dangling apricocks, for which like unruly children make their sire stoop with oppression against the prodigal weight. Give some supportance to the bending twigs. Go thou, like an executioner, cut off the heads of too fast-growing sprays that look too lofty in our commonwealth. All must be even in our government. You thus employed, I will go away the noisome weeds, which without profit suck the soil's fertility from wholesome flowers.
Why should we, in the compass of a pale, keep law and form in due proportion? showing as in the model a firm estate. When our sea-walled garden, the whole land is full of weeds, her fairest flowers choked up, her fruit trees upturned, her hedges ruined, her nuts disordered, and her wholesale herb swarming with caterpillars.
Hold thy peace. He that hath suffered this disordered spring hath now himself met with the fall of leaf. The weeds which his broad spreading leaves did shelter, that seemed in eating him did hold on him, are plucked up root and all by Bolingbroke. I mean the Earl of Wiltshire, Bushy Green.
What? Are they dead?
They are, and Bolingbroke hath seized the wasteful king. Oh, what a pity is it that he had not so trimmed and dressed his land as we this garden. We at this time of year do wound the bark, the skin of our fruit trees, lest being overproud in sap and blood, with too much riches it confound itself. Had he done so to great and growing men, they might have lived to bear and he to taste the fruits of duty. Superfluous branches we lop away, that bearing boughs may live. Had he done so, himself had borne the crown, which waste of idle hours hath quite thrown down.
What? Think you then that the king shall be deposed?
Depressed he is already, and deposed. 'Tis doubt he will be. Letters came last night to a dear friend of the good Duke of York's that tell of black tidings.
Oh, I am pressed to death through want of speaking. Thou old Adam's likeness set to this garden, how dares thy harsh, rude tongue sound this unpleasing news? What Eve, what serpent hath suggested thee to make a second fall of cursed man? Why King Richard is deposed? Darest thou little better thing than earth, divine his downfall? Say where, when, and how camest thou by these ill tidings? Speak, thy wretch.
Pardon me, madam. Little joy have I to breathe this news, yet what I say is true. King Richard, he is in the mighty hold of Bolingbroke. Their fortunes are both weighed in your lord's scale is nothing but himself, and some few vanities that make him light. But in the balance of great Bolingbroke, besides himself, are the English peers, and with that odds he weighs the King Richard down. Post you to London, and you will find it so. I speak no more than every one doth know.
Nimble mischance, that are so light of foot. Doth not this visage belong to me? And am I last that knows it? Oh, thou thinkest to serve me last, that I may longest keep thy sorrow in my breast. Come, ladies, go to meet at London's king in woe. Was I born to this, that my sad look should grace the triumph of great Bolingbroke? Gardner, for telling me these news of woe, pray God the plant thou graftest may never grow.
Poor queen, so that their state might be no worse, I would my skill was subject to their curse. Here did she fall a tear, here in this place I'll set a bank of rue, sour herb of grace. Rue, even for truth, Ruth, here shortly shall be seen in remembrance of a weeping queen.
Forward, Bagot. Now, Bagot, freely speak thy mind. What dost thou know of noble Gloucester's death? Who wrought it with the king, and who performed the bloody office of this untimely end?
Then set before my face Lord Umral.
Cousin, stand forth and look upon that man.
My Lord Umral, I know your daring tongue scorns to unsay what once it hath delivered. In that time when Gloucester's death was plotted, I heard you say, "Is not my arm of length that reaches from the restful English court as far as Calais to mine uncle's head?" Amongst much other talk that very time, I heard you say that you had rather refuse the offer of 100,000 crowns than Bolingbroke's return to England, adding withal how blessed this land would be in your cousin's death.
Princes and noble lords, what answer shall I make to this base man? Shall I so much dishonor my fair stars on equal terms to give him chastisement? Either I must, or I have mine honor soiled with the attainder of his slanderous lips. This is my gage, the manual seal of death that marks thee out for hell. I say, thou liest, and will maintain what thou hast said is false in thy heart blood, though being all too base to stain the temper of my knightly sword.
Bagot, forbear that. Thou shalt not take it up.
Excepting one, I would he were the best in all this presence that hath moved me so.
If that thy valor stand on sympathy, there's my gage, O Merle, engaged to thine. By that fair sun, which shows me where thou standst, I heard thee say, and vauntingly thou spakest it, that thou wert the cause of noble Gloucester's death. If that thou deniest it 20 times, thou liest, and I will turn thy falsehood to thy heart, where it was forged with my rapier's point.
Thou darest not, coward, live to see that day.
Oh, now by my soul, I would it were this hour.
Fitzwater, thou art damned to hell for this.
O Merle, thou liest. His honor is as true in this appeal as thou art all unjust. And that thou art so. There, I throw my gage to prove it on thee to the extremest point of mortal breathing. Seize it if thou darest.
And if I do not, may my hands rot off and never brandish more vengeful steel over the glittering helmet of my foe.
I task the earth alike forsworn, O Merle, and spur thee on with full as many lies as may be hulled in thy treacherous ear from sun to sun. There's my honor's pawn, engaged to the trial if thou darest.
Who sets me else? By heaven, I'll throw at all. I have 20,000 spirits in one breast to answer 20,000 such as you.
My lord Fitzwater, I do remember well the very time Omero, and you did talk.
'Tis very true. You were in presence then, and you could witness with me this is true.
As false by heaven as heaven is itself true.
Sorry, thou liest.
Dishonorable boy, that lie shall render vengeance and revenge, till thou, the lie giver, and that lie do lie in earth as quiet as thy father's skull. In proof thereof, there is my honor's pawn. Engage it to the trial if thou darest.
How fondly dost thou spur a forward horse. If I dare eat, drink, or breathe, or live, I dare meet Surrey in a wilderness and spit upon him and say he lies and lies and lies. There's my bond of faith to tie thee to my strong correction, as I intend to thrive in this new world. O'Merle's guilty of my true appeal. Besides, I heard the banished Norfolk say that thou, O Merle, didst send 2 of thy men to execute the noble Duke at Calais.
Some honest Christian trust me with a gage that Norfolk lies. Here do I throw down this, if he may be repealed to try his honor.
These differences shall all rest under gage, till Norfolk be repealed. Repealed he shall be, and, though mine enemy, restored again to all his lands and seigneuries. When he's returned, against all Merle, we will enforce his trial.
That honorable day shall ne'er be seen. Many a time hath banished Norfolk fought for Jesu Christ in glorious Christian field. streaming the ensign of the Christian cross against black pagans, Turks, and Saracens, and toiled with works of war, retired himself to Italy, and there at Venice gave his body to that pleasant country's earth, and his pure soul unto his captain Christ, under whose colors he had fought so long.
Why, Bishop, is Norfolk dead?
As surely as I live, my lord.
Sweet peace, conduct his sweet soul to the bosom of good old Abraham. Lord appellants, your differences shall all rest on the gauge, till we assign you to your days of trial.
Enter Duke of York, attended.
Great Duke of Lancaster, I come to thee, from plume-plucked Richard, who with willing soul adopts the heir, and his high scepter yields to the possession of thy royal hand. Ascend his throne, descending now from him, and long live Henry, fourth of that name.
Long live Henry, fourth of that name. Long live Henry, fourth of that name.
In God's name, I'll ascend the regal throne.
Mary, God forbid! Worst in this royal presence may I speak, yet best beseeming me to speak the truth. Would God that any in this noble presence were enough noble to be upright judge of noble Richard. Then true noblesse would learn him forbearance from so foul a wrong. What subject can give sentence on his king? And who sits here that is not Richard's subject? Thieves are not judged, but they are by to hear, though apparent guilt be seen in them. And shall the figure of God's majesty, his captain, steward, deputy elect, anointed, crowned, planted many years, be judged by subject and inferior breath, and he himself not present? Oh, forfend it, God, that in a Christian climate, souls refined should show so heinous, black, obscene a deed. I speak to subjects, and a subject speaks, stirred up by God, thus boldly for his king. My lord of Hereford here, whom you call king, is a foul traitor to proud Hereford's king, and if you crown him, let me prophesy, the blood of English shall manure the ground, and future ages groan for this foul act. Peace shall go sleep with Turks and infidels, and in this seat of peace, tumultuous wars shall kin with kin and kind with kind confound. Disorder, horror, fear, and mutiny shall here inhabit, and this land be called the field of Golgotha, and dead men's skulls. Oh, if you raise this house against this house, it will the woefulest division prove that ever fell upon this cursed earth. Prevent it, resist it, let it not be so, lest child's children cry against you, woe.
Well, have you argued, sir? And for your pains of capital treason, we arrest you here. My lord of Westminster, be it your charge to keep him safely till his day of trial. May it please you, lords, to grant the common suit.
Fetch hither Richard, that in common view he may surrender, so we shall proceed without suspicion.
I will be his conduct.
Lords, you that here are under our arrest, procure your sureties for your day of answer. Little are we beholding to your love, and little looked for at your helping hands.
Re-enter Duke of York with King Richard II and officers bearing the regalia.
Alack, why am I sent for to a king before I have shook off the regal thoughts wherewith I reigned? I hardly yet have learned to insinuate, flatter, bow, and bend my knee. If sorrow leave a while to tutor me to this submission. Yet I well remember the favors of these men. Were they not mine? Did they not sometime cry, all hail to me? So Judas did to Christ, yet he in 12 found truth in all but one. I in 12,000, none. God save the king. Will no man say amen? Am I both priest and clerk? Well then, amen! God save the king! Although I be not he. And yet, amen, if heaven do think him me. To do what service am I sent for hither?
To do that office of thine own good will, which tired majesty did make thee offer, the resignation of thy state and crown to Henry Bolingbroke.
Give me the crown. Here, cousin, seize the crown. Here, cousin, on this side my hand, and on that side thine. Now is this golden crown like a deep well that owes two buckets, filling one another, the emptier ever dancing in the air, the other down, unseen and full of water. That bucket down and full of tears am I, drinking my griefs, whilst you mount up on high.
I thought you had been willing to resign.
My crown I am, but still my griefs are mine. You may my glories, my state depose, but not my griefs. Still am I king of those.
Part of your cares you give me with your crown.
Your cares set up, do not pluck my cares down. My care is loss of care, by old care done. Your care is gain of care, by new care won. The cares I give I have, though given away, they tend the crown, yet still with me they stay.
Are you contented to resign the crown?
I? No, no, I, for I must nothing be, therefore no, no, for I resign to thee. Now, mark me, how I will undo myself. I give this heavy weight from off my head, and this unwieldy scepter from my hand, the pride of kingly sway from out my heart. With mine own tears I wash away my balm. With mine own hands I give away my crown. With mine own tongue deny my sacred state. With mine own breath release all duteous oaths. All pomp and majesty I do forswear. My manners, rents, revenues I do forego. I acts, decrees, and statutes I deny. God pardon all oaths that are broke to me. God keep all vows unbroke are made to thee. Make me that nothing have, with nothing grieved, and thou, with all please that hast all achieved, long mayest thou live in Richard's seat to sit, and soon lie Richard in an earthly pit. God save King Harry, unkinged Richard says, and send him many years of sunshine days. What more remains?
No more, but that you read these accusations and these grievous crimes committed by your person and your followers against the state and profit of this land. That by confessing them, the souls of men may deem you are worthily deposed.
Must I do so? And must I ravel out my weaved-up follies? Gentle Northumberland, if thy offences were upon record, would it not shame thee in so fair a troop to read a lecture of them? If thou wouldst, there shouldst thou find one heinous article, containing the deposing of a king, and cracking the strong warrant of an oath, marked with a blot, damned in the book of heaven. Nay, all of you that stand and look upon me, whilst that my wretchedness doth bait myself. Though some of you with Pilate wash your hands, showing an outward pity, yet you Pilates have here delivered me to my sour cross, and water cannot wash away your sin.
My lord, dispatch, read o'er these articles.
Mine eyes are full of tears, I cannot see, and yet salt water blinds them not so much, but they can see a sort of traitors here. Nay, if I turn mine eyes upon myself, I find myself a traitor with the rest, for I have given here my soul's consent to undeck the pompous body of a king, made glory base and sovereignty a slave, proud majesty a subject, state a peasant.
My lord!
No lord of thine, thou heart-insulting man, nor no man's lord. I have no name, no title. No, not that name was given me out the font, but 'tis usurped. Alack the heavy day that I have worn so many winters out, and know not now what name to call myself. Oh, that I were a mockery king of snow, standing before the sun of Bolingbroke, to melt myself away in water drops. Good king, great king, and yet not greatly good. And if my word be sterling yet in England, let it command a mirror hither straight, that it may show me what a face I have, since it is bankrupt of his majesty.
Go, some of you, and fetch a looking-glass.
Read o'er this paper while the glass doth come.
Fiend, thou tormentest me ere I come to hell.
Urge it no more, my lord Northumberland.
The Commons will not then be satisfied.
They shall be satisfied. I'll read enough. When I do see the very book indeed where all my sins are writ, and that's myself. Give me the glass, and therein I will read. No deeper wrinkles yet? Hath sorrow struck so many blows upon this face of mine, and made no deeper wounds? Oh, flattering glass! Like to my followers in prosperity, thou dost beguile me. Was this face the face that every day under his household roof did keep 10,000 men? Was this the face that like the sun did make beholders wink? Was this the face that faced so many follies and was at last outfaced by Bolingbroke? A brittle glory shineth in this face, as brittle as the glory is the face, for there it is, cracked in 100 shivers. Mark, silent king, the moral of this sport. How soon my sorrow hath destroyed my face.
The shadow of your sorrow hath destroyed the shadow of your face.
Say that again. The shadow of my shadow. Ha! Let's see, 'tis very true, my grief lies all within, and these external manners of laments are merely shadows to the unseen grief that swells with silence in the tortured soul. There lies the substance, and I can thank thee, king, for thy great bounty that not only givest me cause to wail, but teachest me the way how to lament the cause. I'll beg one boon, and then be gone and trouble you no more.
Name it, fair.
Shall I obtain it?
Name it, fair cousin.
Fair cousin, I am greater than a king, for when I was a king, my flatterers were then but subjects. Being now a subject, I have a king here to my flatterer. Being so great, I have no need to beg.
Yet ask.
And shall I have?
You shall.
Then give me leave to go.
Whither?
Whither you will, so I were from your sights.
Go, some of you, convey him to the tower.
Oh, good, conveyors are you all, that rise thus nimbly by a true king's fall.
On Wednesday next we solemnly set down our coronation. Lords, prepare yourselves.
Oh, woeful pageant have we here beheld.
Woes to come. The children yet unborn shall feel this day as sharp to them as thorn.
You holy clergymen, is there no plot to rid the realm of this pernicious blot?
My lord, before I freely speak my mind, herein you shall not only take the sacrament to bury mine intents, but also to effect whatever I shall happen to devise. I see your brows are full of discontent, your hearts are of sorrow, and your eyes of tears. Come home with me to supper, and I'll lay a plot shall show us all a merry day.
Act 5, Scene 1. London, a street leading to the Tower. Enter Queen and ladies.
This way the king will come. This is the way to Julius Caesar's ill-erected tower. To his flint of bosom my condemned lord is doomed a prisoner by proud Bolingbroke. Here, let us lie if this rebellious earth have any resting for her true king's queen. But soft, but see, or rather do not see, my fair rose wither. Yet look up, behold that you in pity me dissolve to dew, and wash him fresh again with true love tears. Ah, thou, the model where old Troy did stand, thou map of honor, thou King Richard's tomb, and not King Richard. Thou most beauteous inn, why should hard-fevered grief be lodged in thee when triumph is become an alehouse guest?
Joy not with grief, fair woman. Do not so. To make my end too sudden. Learn, good soul, to think our former state a happy dream, from which awakened the truth of what we are shows us but this, I am sworn brother, sweet, to grim necessity, and he and I will keep a league till death. Hie thee to France, and cloister thee in some religious house. Our holy lives must win a new world's crown, which our profane hours here have thrown down.
What? Is my Richard both in shape and mind transformed and weakened? Hath Bolingbroke deposed thy intellect? Hath he been in thy heart? The lion dying thrust forth his paw and wounds the earth, if nothing else with rage. To be o'erpowered, and wilt thou pupil-like? Take the correction mildly, kiss the rod, and fawn on rage with base humility. Which art a lion and a king of beasts.
A king of beasts indeed. If aught but beast I had been, still a happy king of men. Good sometime queen, prepare thee hence for France. Think I am dead, and that even here thou takest as from my deathbed thy last living leave. In winter's tedious nights, sit by the fire with the good old folks, and let them tell thee tales of woeful ages long ago betid, and ere thou bid good night to quit their griefs, tell thou the lamentable tale of me, and send the hearers weeping to their beds. For why? The senseless brands will sympathize the heavy accent of thy moving tongue, and in compassion weep the fire out. And some will mourn in ashes, some coal black, for the deposing of a rightful king.
My lord, the mind of Bolingbroke is changed. He must have Pomfret, not unto the tower. And madam, there is an order ta'en for you. With all swift speed you must away to France.
Northumberland, thou ladder wherewithal the mounting Bolingbroke ascends my throne. The time shall not be many hours of age, more than it is ere foul sin gathering head shall break into corruption. Thou shalt think, though he divide the realm and give thee half, it is too little, helping him to all. And he shall think that thou, which knowest the way to plant unrightful kings, wilt know again, being ne'er so little urged, another way to pluck him headlong from the usurped throne. The love of wicked men converts to fear, that fear to hate, and hate turns one or both to worthy danger and deserved death.
My guilt be on my head, and there an end. Take leave and part, or you must part forthwith.
Doubly divorced! Bad men, you violate a twofold marriage, twixt my crown and me, and then twixt me and my married wife. Let me unkiss the oath twixt thee and me. And yet, not so, for with a kiss 'twas made. Part us, Northumberland, I towards the north, where shivering cold and sickness pines the clime. My wife to France, from whence set forth in pomp she came adorned hither like sweet May, sent back like hallowness or shortest of day.
And must we be divided? Must we part?
Aye, hand from hand, my love, and heart from heart.
Banish us both and set the king with me.
That were some love, but little policy.
Then whither he goes, thither let me go.
So two together weeping make one woe. Weep thou for me in France, I for thee here. Better far off than near, be ne'er than near. Go, count thy way with sighs, I mine with groans.
So longest way shall have the longest moans.
Twice for one step I'll groan, the way being short, and piece the way out with a heavy heart. Come, come, in wooing sorrow let's be brief, since wedding it there is such length and grief. One kiss shall stop our mouths, and dumbly part. Thus give I mine, and thus take I thy heart.
Give me my own again. 'Twere no good part to take on me to keep and kill thy heart. So, now I have my own again. Be gone, that I might have strive to kill with the groan.
We make woe wanton with this fond delay. Once more, adieu. The rest let sorrow say.
Act 5, Scene 2. The Duke of York's palace. Enter Duke of York and Duchess of York.
My lord, you told me you would tell the rest when weeping made you break the story off of our two cousins coming into London.
Where did I leave?
At that sad stop, my lord. where rude misgoverned hands from windows' tops threw dust and rubbish on King Richard's head.
Then, as I said, the Duke, great Bolingbroke, mounted upon a hot and fiery steed, which his aspiring rider seemed to know, with slow but stately pace kept on his course, whilst all tongues cried, God save thee, Bolingbroke! You would have thought the very windows spake, so many greedy looks of young and old through casements darted their desiring eyes upon his visage, and that all the walls with painted imagery had said at once, Jesu preserve thee, welcome Bolingbroke, whilst he, from the one side to the other, turning bareheaded, lower than his proud steed's neck, bespake them thus, I thank you, countrymen. And thus, still doing thus, he passed along.
Alack, poor Richard, where rode he the whilst?
As in a theatre, the eyes of men after a well-graced actor leaves the stage are idly bent on him that enters next, thinking his prattle to be tedious. Even so, or with much more contempt, men's eyes did scowl on Richard. No man cried, God save him. No joyful tongue gave him his welcome home. But dust was thrown upon his sacred head, which with such gentle sorrow he shook off, his face still combating with tears and smiles the badges of his grief and patience that had not God, for some strong purpose, steeled the hearts of men. They must perforce have melted, and barbarism itself have pitied him. But heaven hath a hand in these events, to whose high will we bound our calm contents. To Bolingbroke are we sworn subjects now, whose state and honour I allow.
Here comes my son, O Merle.
O Merle that was. But that is lost for being Richard's friend. And madam, you must call him Rutland now. I'm in Parliament pledged for his truth and lasting fealty to the new-made king.
Welcome, my son. Who are the violets now that strew the green lap of the new-come spring?
Madam, I know not, nor I greatly care not. God knows I had as lief be none as one.
Well, bear you well in this new spring of time, lest you be cropped before you come to prime. What news from Oxford? Do these jousts and triumphs hold?
For aught I know, my lord, they do.
You will be there, I know.
If God prevent not, I purpose so.
What seal is that hangs without thy bosom? Yea, looks thou pale. Let me see the writing.
I do beseech your grace to pardon me. It is a matter of small consequence, which for some reasons I would not have seen.
And for some reason, sir, I mean to see. Let me see the writing.
I do beseech you, pardon me, I may not show it.
What should you fear?
What should you fear? 'Tis nothing but some bond that he has entered into for gay apparel against the triumph day.
Bound to himself? What doth he with a bond that he is bound to? Why, thou art a fool. Boy, let me see the writing.
I do beseech you, pardon me, I may not show it.
I will be satisfied. Let me see it, I say. Treason. Foul treason, villain, traitor, slave.
What is the matter, my lord?
Oh, who's within there? Saddle my horse. God, for his mercy, what treachery is here?
Why, what is it, my lord?
Give me my boots, I say. Saddle my horse. Now, by mine honour, by my life, by my troth, I will appeach the villain.
What is the matter?
Peace, foolish woman.
I will not peace. What is the matter, O Merle?
Good mother, be content. It is no more than my poor life must answer.
Thy life answer?
Bring me my boots. I will to the king.
Strike him, O Merle. Poor boy, thou art amazed. Hence, villain, never more come within my sight.
Give me my boots, I say.
Why, York, what wilt thou do? Wilt thou not hide the trespass of thine own? Have we more sons, or are we like to have? Is not my teeming date drunk up with time? And wilt thou pluck my fair son from mine age, and rob me of a happy mother's name? Is he not like thee? Is he not thine own?
Thou fond mad woman, wilt thou conceal this dark conspiracy? A dozen of them, have taken the sacrament and interchangeably set down their hands to kill the king at Oxford.
He shall be none. We'll keep him here. Then what is that to him?
Away, fond woman, were he 20 times my son, I would appeach him.
Hadst thou groaned for him as I have done, thou wouldst be more pitiful. But now I know thy mind. Thou dost suspect that I have been disloyal to thy bed, and that he is a bastard, not thy son. Sweet York, sweet husband, be not of that mind. He is as like thee as a man may be, not like to me or any of my kin, and yet I love him.
Make way, unruly woman.
After O'Merle, mount thee upon his horse, spur post and get before him to the king, and beg thy pardon ere he do accuse thee. I'll not be long behind. Though I be old, I doubt not but to ride as fast as York, and never will I rise up from the ground till Bolingbroke have pardoned thee. Away, begone.
Act 5, Scene 3, a royal palace. Enter Henry Bolingbroke, Henry Percy, and other lords.
Can no man tell me of my unthrifty son? 'Tis full 3 months since I did see him last. If any plague hang over us, 'tis he. I would to God, my lords, he might be found. Inquire at London, amongst the taverns there, for there they say he daily doth frequent with unrestrained loose companions, even such, they say, as stand in narrow lanes and beat our watch and rob our passengers, while he, young wanton and effeminate boy, takes on the point of honor to support so dissolute a crew.
My lord, some 2 days since I saw the prince, and told him of those triumphs held at Oxford.
And what said the gallant?
His answer was, he would unto the stews, and from the commonest creature pluck a glove, and wear it as a favor, and with that he went on a horse the lustiest challenger.
As dissolute as desperate, but yet, though both I see, but yet through both I see some sparks of better hope, which elder years might happily bring forth. But who comes here?
Where is the king?
What means our cousin that he stares and looks so wildly?
God save your grace, I do beseech your majesty to have some conference with your grace alone.
Withdraw yourselves and leave us here alone. What is the matter with our cousin now?
Forever may my knees grow to the earth, my tongue cleave to my roof within my mouth, unless a pardon ere I rise or speak.
Intended or committed was the fault. If on the first, how heinous ere it be, to win thy afterlove I pardon thee.
Then give me leave that I may turn the key, that no man enter till my tale be done.
Have thy desire.
My liege, beware, look to thyself. Thou hast a traitor in thy presence there.
Villain, I'll make thee safe.
Stay thy vengeful hand, thou hast no cause to fear.
Open the door. Secure, foolhardy king, shall I for love speak treason to thy face? Open the door, or I will break it open.
Uncle, recover breath. Speak, tell us how near is danger that we may arm us to encounter it.
Peruse this writing here, and thou shalt know the treason that my haste forbids me show.
Remember as thou readest, thy promise past, I do repent me. Read not my name there, my hand is not confederate with my heart.
It was villain ere thy hand did set it down. I tore it from the traitor's bosom, king. Fear and not love begets his penitence. Forget to pity him, lest thy pity prove a serpent that will sting thee to thy heart.
Oh, heinous, strong, and bold conspiracy! Oh, loyal father of a treacherous son! Thou sheer immaculate and silver fountain from whence this stream through muddy passages hath held his current and defiled himself. Thy overthrow of good converts to bad, and thy abundant goodness shall excuse this deadly blot in thy digressing son.
So shall my virtue be his honours, his vices board, and he shall spend mine honour with his shame, as thriftless sons their scraping father's gold. Mine honour lives when his dishonour dies, or my shamed life in his dishonour lies. Thou kill'st me in his life, giving him breath, the traitor lives, the true man's put to death.
What ho, my liege! For God's sake, let me in!
What shrill-voiced supplicant makes this eager cry?
A woman, and thine aunt, great king, 'tis I. Speak with me, pity me, open the door. A beggar begs that never begged before.
Our scene is altered from a serious thing and now changed to the beggar and the king. My dangerous cousin, let your mother in. I know she's come to pray for your foul sin.
If thou do pardon whosoever pray, more sins for this forgiveness prosper may. This festered joint cut off and the rest sound. This, let alone, will all the rest confound.
O king, believe not this hard-hearted man. Love loving not itself, none other can.
Thou frantic woman, what dost thou make here? Shall thy old dugs once more a traitor rear?
Sweet York, be patient. Hear me, gentle liege.
Good aunt, rise up.
Not yet, I thee beseech. Forever will I walk upon my knees, and never see day that the happy sees, till thou give joy, until thou bid me joy, by pardoning Rutland, my transgressing boy.
Unto my mother's prayers I bend my knee.
Against them both, my true joints bended be. Ill mayst thou thrive if thou grant any grace.
Pleads he in earnest? Look upon his face. His eyes do drop no tears. His prayers are in jest. His words come from his mouth, ours from our breast. He prays but faintly and would be denied. We pray with heart and soul and all beside. His weary joints would gladly rise, I know. Our knees shall kneel till the ground they grow. His prayers are full of false hypocrisy, ours of true zeal and deep integrity. Our prayers do outpray his, then let them have that mercy which true prayer ought to have.
Good aunt, stand up.
Nay, do not say stand up. Say pardon first, and afterwards stand up. And if I were thy nurse, thy tongue to teach, pardon should be the first word of thy speech. I never longed to hear a word till now. Say pardon, king, let pity teach thee how. The word is short, but not so short as sweet. No word like pardon for kings' mouths so meet.
Speak it in French, king. Say pardonne-me.
Dost thou teach pardon, pardon to destroy? Oh, my sour husband, my hard-hearted lord, that sets the word against itself, the word. Speak pardon as 'tis current in our land. The chopping French we do not understand. Thy tongue begins to speak, set thy tongue there, or in thy piteous heart plant thou thine ear, that hearing how our plaints and prayers do pierce, pity may move thee pardon to rehearse.
Good aunt, stand up.
I do not sue to stand. Pardon is all the suit I have in hand.
I pardon him as God shall pardon me.
Oh, happy vantage of a kneeling knee. Yet am I sick with fear. Speak it again. Twice saying pardon doth not pardon twain, but makes one pardon strong.
With all my heart, I pardon him.
A God on earth thou art.
But for our trusty brother-in-law and the abbot, with all the rest of that consorted crew, destruction straight shall dog them at the heels. Good uncle, help to order several powers to Oxford, or where these traitors be. They shall not live within this world, I swear, but I will have them if I once know where. Uncle, farewell, and cousin too, adieu. Your mother well had prayed, and prove you true.
Come, my old son, I pray God make thee new.
Act 5, Scene 4. The same. Enter Exton and servants.
Didst thou not mark the king, what words he spake? Have I no friend will rid me of this living fear? Was it not so?
These were the very words he said.
Have I no friend? Quoth he. He spake it twice. He urged it twice together, did he not?
He did.
And speaking it, he wishly looked on me, and who should say, I would thou wert the man that would divorce this terror from my heart, meaning the king at Pomfret. Come, let's go. I am the king's friend and will rid his foe.
Act 5, Scene 5. A prison at Pomfret Castle. Enter King Richard.
I have been studying how I may compare this prison where I live unto the world. And because the world is populous, and here is not a creature but myself, I cannot do it. Yet, I'll hammer it out. My brain I'll prove the female to my soul the father. And these two beget a generation of still-breeding thoughts. And these same thoughts people this little world, and humors like the people of this world, for no thought is contented. The better sort, as thoughts of things divine are intermixed with scruples, and do set the word itself against the word, as thus. Come, little ones. And then again, it is as hard to come as for a camel to thread the postern of a small needle's eye. Thoughts tending to ambition, they do plot unlikely wonders. How these vain, weak nails may tear a passage through the flinty ribs of this hard world, my ragged prison walls. And for they cannot die in their own pride. Thoughts tending to content flatter themselves that they are not the first of fortune's slaves, nor shall not be the last. Like silly beggars who sitting in the stocks refuge their shame that many have and others must sit there. And in this thought they find a kind of ease, bearing their own misfortunes on the back of such as has before endured the like. Thus play I in one person many people, and none contented. Sometimes am I king, then treasons make me wish myself a beggar, and so I am. Then crushing penury persuades me I was better when a king. Then am I kinged again, and by think that I am unkinged by Bolingbroke, and straight am nothing. But whate'er I be, nor I, nor any man that but man is, with nothing shall be pleased, till he be eased with being nothing. Music do I hear? Keep time! How sour sweet music is when time is broke and no proportion kept. So is it in the music of men's lives. And here have I the daintiness of ear to check time broken a disordered string. But for the concord of my state and time had not an ear to hear my true time broke. I wasted time, and now doth time waste me. For now hath time made me his numbering clock. My thoughts are minutes, and with sighs they jar their watches on unto mine eyes, the outward watch, where to my finger like a dial's point is pointing still, and cleansing them from tears. Now, sir, the sound that tells what hour it is are clamorous groans which strike upon my heart, which is the bell. So sighs and tears and groans show minutes, times, and hours. But my time runs posting on in Bolingbroke's proud joy, while I stand fooling here as Jack of the Clock. This music mads me! Let it sound no more! For though it hath helped madmen to their wits, in me it seems it will make wise men mad. Yet, blessing on his heart that gives it me, for 'tis a sign of love, and love to Richard is a strange brooch in this all-hating world.
Hail, royal prince.
Thanks, noble peer. The cheapest of us is 10 groats too dear. What art thou? And how comest thou hither where no man never comes but that sad dog that brings me food to make misfortune live?
I was a poor groom of thy stable, king, when thou wert king, who travelling towards York with much ado at length have gotten leave to look upon my sometimes royal master's face. Oh, how it earned my heart when I beheld in London streets that coronation day when Bolingbroke rode on roan Barbary, that horse that thou so often hast bestride, that horse that I so carefully have dressed.
Rode he on Barbary? Tell me, gentle friend, how went he under him?
So proudly as if he disdained the ground.
So proud that Bolingbroke was on his back. That jade hath eat bread from my royal hand. This hand hath made him proud with clapping him. Would he not stumble? Would he not fall down, since pride must have a fall, and break the neck of that proud man that did usurp his back? Forgiveness, horse. Why do I rail on thee, since thou, created to be awed by man, wast born to bear? I was not made a horse, and yet I bear a burthen like an ass, spurred, galled, and tired by jouncing Bolingbroke.
Fellow, give place, here's no longer stay.
If thou love me, 'tis time thou wert away.
What my tongue dares not, that my heart shall say.
My lord, will it please you to fall too?
Taste of it first, as thou art wont to do.
My lord, I dare not. Sir Pierce of Exton, who lately came from the king, commands the contrary.
The devil hath Henry of Lancaster in thee. Patience is stale, and I am weary of it.
Help! Help! Help!
How now? What means death in this rude assault? Villain, thy own hand yields thy death's instrument.
Ah!
Go thou, and fill another room in hell!
Ah!
That hand shall burn in never-quenching fire that staggers thus my person. Exton, thy fierce hand hath with the king's blood stained the king's own land. Mount, mount, my soul. Thy seat is up on high, whilst my gross flesh sinks downward. Here, to die.
As full of valor as of royal blood, both have I spilled. Oh, would the deed were good! For now the devil that told me I did well says that his deed is chronicled in hell. This dead king to the living I'll bear. Take the rest hence and give them burial here.
Act 5, Scene 6. Windsor Castle. Flourish. Enter Henry Bolingbroke, Duke of York, with other lords and attendants.
Kind Uncle York, the latest news we hear is that the rebels have consumed with fire our town of Chichester in Gloucestershire. But whether they be ta'en or slain, we hear not. Welcome, my lords. What's the news?
First, to thy sacred state wish I all happiness. The next news is, I have to London sent the heads of Oxford, Salisbury, Blunt, and Kent. The manner of their taking may appear at large discoursed in this paper here.
We thank thee, gentle Percy, for thy pains, and for thy worth will add right worthy gains.
My lord, I have from Oxford sent to London the heads of Brocas and Sir Bennet Seeley, two of the dangerous consorted traitors that sought at Oxford thy dire overthrow.
Ah, thy pains, Fitzwater, shall not be forgot. Right noble is thy merit, well I wot.
The grand conspirator, Abbot of Westminster, with clog of conscience and sour melancholy, hath yielded up his body to the grave. But here is Carlyle, living, to abide thy kingly doom and sentence of his pride.
Carlyle, this is thy doom. Choose out some secret place, some reverent room, more than thou hast, and with it joy thy life. So as thou livest in peace, die free from strife. For thou, though mine enemy thou hast ever been, high sparks of honor in thee have I seen.
Great King, with this coffin I present thy buried fear. Herein, all breathless, lies the mightiest of thy greatest enemies, Richard of Bordeaux, by me hither brought.
Exton, I thank thee not, for thou hast wrought a deed of slander with thy fatal hand upon my head and all this famous land.
From my own mouth, my lord, did I this for you.
They love not poison that do poison need, nor do I thee. Though I did wish him dead, I hate the murderer. Love him, murdered. The guilt of conscience take thou for thy labor, but neither my good word nor princely favor. With Cain go wander thorough shades of night, and never show thy head by day or light. Lords, I protest my soul is full of woe, that blood should sprinkle me to make me grow. Come, mourn with me, for that I do lament, and put on sullen black incontinent. I'll make a voyage to the Holy Land, to wash this blood off from my guilty hand. March sadly after, grace my mornings here, in weeping after this untimely bear.
I have a question from Abiola. Will you be doing Macbeth sometime?
Hey, cousin Abiola. That's my cousin. That's interesting. Don't know. Think about it. It's a pretty bloody play. It's a bloody, bloody play, as the Brits might say. So I don't know. Thinking about it. Who knows? I'm thinking about that one. That is one I wanted to do as well. So thinking about it, and a couple of others in my mind.
I have a question from Enku.
Yeah. Hey, Enku.
How did you rehearse for this production?
Well, we met for 3 weeks, Friday, Saturday nights, like 3 hours, 6 to 9, 3 Friday, Saturday nights. And then I met separately at least a couple times with some of the major characters for an hour or two.
Miguel has another question for us,
Oh.
if you want to peek at it in the chat. Was there a particular inspiration for doing this play now?
Well, I love this play, and because I love it, I also thought that it was a timely play for us to do right now. And given the times we're in, and with the politics and the family madness that's going on, and the waste of resources, land, the disrespect of people's lives, I just feel like this play, says a lot about what's happening today in many different ways. So it's kind of timely, We have Barry with us, who has taught Richard II a couple of times. He's a playwright and a dramaturg. Anyone have questions for Barry? He's a pretty smart dude. I shouldn't say dude, right? Barry, can you say
I'll
something?
unmute myself now after that.
Yeah,
one.
thank you. Can you say something, Barry? Just share with it, folks.
Does it have
How do you find it timely?
Does it have to be smart? Because I might be in trouble.
Huh?
No,
It's
what you just
live.
said, it's a very timely play right now for sure. When I briefly chatted with the cast at the beginning of this process, I mentioned that the Elizabethan audiences were very tuned into what sometimes is referred to the great chain of being, how a society is structured hierarchically. And they clearly had God at the top, and they had the laws right under God, and then the royals. So right off the bat with Richard, ignoring the laws of inheritance and changing his mind on the length of banishment. Would probably put the audience, made the audience very uneasy. And we're going through a lot of that now, when we hear about things like taking away post office boxes so that it'll be harder to vote. Where did that come from? I read through the Constitution. I've looked at the laws. I don't see anything about that. And it makes the population very uneasy when you have a leader who is so capricious and really disregards what the law is. So the first half of the play, Richard is not that sympathetic, but as his poetry and the beauty of his speech increases as his power decreases, I think it's fair to say that he becomes more of a sympathetic character in the second half of the play. But yeah, it's very, I think it's very tuned into what's going on in a lot of ways right now. And the whole issue of rebellion was something that was very much on the minds of Elizabethans at the time this play was being performed. And in fact, several years after its first performance, it was performed again on the eve of an attempted coup of Elizabeth. And when we see people, armed people, going into state houses to protest having to wear a mask, some of us get worried about those kinds of rebellions. And I think Elizabethans probably felt the same way. So I thought it was a great choice for right now.
Could I say something about this?
Yeah. Oh, yes, please.
What's interesting to me is that Bolingbroke does everything he can to make an illegal action legal. You know, usurpation is illegal. It's against the law. But he does everything he can to be witnessed, to make sure that things go forward without suspicion, all of that kind of thing. So it's an interesting question when you're resisting a leader, an entrenched leader. How do you negotiate the law? Can you act outside the law? If you act outside the law, you're undermining the institutions that the bad leader is doing. Are you doing the same thing as he is? So I think those are very relevant questions right now for how we're engaging with the government right now. Do we engage from the outside? Do you engage from the inside? What's more effective? Where do we do? What's our place?
Mm-hmm.
It's very similar to Julius Caesar as well. Like, you know, taking down like a leader that he supposes is misusing his power or is evil or whatever. And like, you know, Bolingbroke is really remorseful about having to do that. And obviously in Julius Caesar, when Caesar's taken out, then, you know, all hell breaks loose. So yeah, like there's a lot of like temptation to, like I saw someone protesting in the streets, like violent revolution against Trump, but it's like, despite the fact that he's a cruel and horrible leader, it's, you know, that bears some consequences as well.
And it's the consequences of, you know, the usurpation here. Carlyle says, you know, it gave birth to the Civil War, basically, you know, the War of the Roses that went on for quite a while.
Oh yeah, yes, indeed.
Yeah.
So perhaps from inside we do the change.
Well, I don't, you know, I don't know what the answer is. I know what Shakespeare's trying to say, but you know, I don't know. I don't know. It's still a question. It's still a question.
For a long time, chronologically, in terms of the history of the rest of Shakespeare's history plays, in some way or other, they were all dealing with what happened in Richard II.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, in Henry V, Richard is referenced too. I can later on as well.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
There's one little thing that I caught in this reading, because I was reading something about the Queen, who at the time of Richard being deposed was 10 years old. She was in the royal
Right.
family in France. She was a princess. And Richard married her when she was 6. And apparently they were very fond of each other, obviously not in a marriage sort of way, but she really was very loyal to him, and he really cared a lot for her. And there was a reference that that Richard had stopped Bolingbroke from from having a political marriage. After Richard's death, Henry IV, wanted Isabella to marry his son, who became.
It's alluded to in York's speech.
Yeah, and she wouldn't do it, and apparently couldn't force her to do it, and she went back to France, and got married to some nobleman, and unfortunately died in childbirth at the age of 20. But it was kind of Richard's last kick in the behind to Henry.
Right. Yeah, it's a really great one. Well, we're gonna have this recording on the YouTube. Is this gonna be the same address, Roxanne?
Probably not.
Okay, but y'all can just, you can always contact us. And also, we wanted to say really thank you to everyone for supporting. And let me just get a screenshot. And while we're here, stand up. Yeah, thank you. I want to get a screenshot. A couple of screenshots here. I'm going to do another one. Yeah, Dev has as charming a smile as Barry does. Always the same. Yeah, right. You guys, I'm gonna send it to you guys, and you will see what I'm talking about. It's like you guys can clock that smile. Okay, Cliff, give me one. Give me one, Cliff. You give me the Gabna Lokman. But we're gonna say thank you and wait and bow right now. So we're gonna want to say thank you. Everybody wave. Keep waving. I'm gonna take a shot of that. I won't be in it, but I'll take a nice, cute little shot. Thank you. Bye, guys. Thanks so much for your support.
Bye, everyone.
And
well done, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. If you want to see it again, we'll send you a link.
Pleasure working with you all.
Great
Likewise.
working with you
Likewise.
all.
Bye, everyone.
Tapping out. Bye, Dad.